toutes et à tous, encore une fois, et c'est encore une fois à moi de vous accueillir à l'Unesco. Nous sommes vraiment très contents d'avoir ces deux séances d'aujourd'hui et de demain pour ce forum international des ONG consacré à promouvoir une culture de la paix en Afrique, des racines à la résilience, qui est organisé dans le cadre de la semaine Afrique, Africa Week 2026. Nous avons une session très intense aujourd'hui, mais j'aimerais bien juste vous dire un mot sur les collègues des ONG qui ont fait partie du comité de pilotage, et j'aimerais bien les citer parce que nous sommes vraiment très reconnaissants pour leur travail et leur contribution. Comme vous le savez, nous avons fait un appel aux ONG. Nous avons sélectionné 4 ONG et je vais citer Kevin Peterson de l'Association internationale des hydrogéologues, Adamagnon Essoyemewe de la Ligue internationale des femmes pour la paix et la liberté, Stéphanie Kapfunde du réseau artérial, Rafi Ani Krashni de la Fédération internationale des étudiants en pharmacie, et last but not least, mon copilote Ramnek Alouvalia de Higher Health, qui est aussi mon collègue et membre du comité de liaison. Et j'aimerais vraiment remercier, malgré le fait que certains membres du comité de pilotage n'ont pas pu être là en personne, j'aimerais vraiment les remercier pour leur travail. Et sans plus tarder, je passe la parole à mon copilote Ramnek Alouvalia. Floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, representatives from UNESCO members, civil society members, partners, and dear friends, good afternoon. It's both an honor and a great pleasure to welcome you to this official opening session of our series of conversations dedicated. Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right. So it's both an honor and a great pleasure to welcome you to this official opening session of our series of conversations dedicated to advancing a culture of peace in Africa. As many of you know, we have had many fruitful high-level panel discussions, reflection, and exchanges that engaged from our previous dialogues. But today, however, marks an official beginning of a new and important phase of our collective engagement. We begin this journey with 3 critical themes: water, education, and youth, because we firmly believe these are the most important pillars for building sustainable peace, stability, and prosperity across the African continent. The session lays the foundation of a broader conversation that we hope will continue to grow in the months and years ahead. We are very proud of the strong collaboration with the UNESCO Division Priority Africa. I don't know Mohammed is here, but thank you, Mohammed, for this, and whose partnership has been very instrumental in shaping the initiatives and ensuring that Africa remains at the center of these global conversations. We would also like to highlight the call for action that was launched earlier this year and will remain open until mid-December. Through this call, we hope to identify support and amplify inspiring initiatives that contribute to peace building, social cohesion, education, youth empowerment, and sustainable development goals throughout the African continent. Some of these initiatives will receive the UNESCO NGO Design Label, Committee Label, an initiative we are very proud to say has borne through the collaboration with the Division of Priority Africa. We believe this recognition can help give visibility, credibility, and momentum to give impact to grassroots and institutional efforts through our civil societies in the continent. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we speak about Africa, we also speak honestly about its greatest strength, and that is youth. Africa is a young continent. Its median age is just 17 and 18. This really means it comes with a challenge. It also comes with an extraordinary opportunity. Young people are not simply beneficiaries of peace-building efforts. They are critical agents and architects of peace-building itself. Isabel, you speak better than me on this matter of youth matters. But if young people are excluded, unheard, unemployed, or disconnected from opportunity, we risk deepening instability and social fragmentation. Therefore, our responsibility is clear. We must create systems that empower youth not only to participate in society, but also shape its future. This is precisely my institution, Higher Health, continues to place young people at the center of work. Civic education, life skills, soft skills development, leadership training, mental health, values-driven programming. These are things that we need to work across the continent and communities and institutions around to help and build a future of Africa that is peaceful, resilient, ethical, and socially cohesive. We believe peace is not built only through political agreements. Peace is built in classrooms. Peace is built in communities. Peace is built through dignity. Peace is built through opportunities, dialogue, empathy, and of course, education. Allow me to briefly outline today's sessions. Our first session will be on water. Water as a catalyst for cooperation from scarcity to shared security. Our second session will be reimagining education systems as engines of Africa and African peace. And our third session will be youth as the co-architects of peace and stability. All of these sessions will be streamed live, and participating NGOs who have already received the access links to that colleagues and partners who unfortunately could not join us today physically may still participate online and follow the discussions. We would also like to sincerely thank the panelists joining us today for sharing their expertise, experience, and commitment to this important cause. At the same time, we must acknowledge the realities and the financial constraints many of our NGOs and institutions and organizations are currently facing globally. We have hoped to welcome many people in person today, but our efforts are on. We'll continue for the next Africa Week to fundraise and bring more and more opportunities to NGOs to come in person. Distinguished guests, Africa's future cannot be built through conflict, division, or exclusion. It will be built through cooperation, solidarity, education, youth empowerment, and a shared commitment of peace and human dignity. So today is not simply a start of another conference, but it's a larger movement, a movement to strengthen the culture of peace across Africa and to ensure that the future generations inherit a continent defined not only by challenges, but by its positions. I believe God bless Africa, God bless UNESCO, and God bless all for today. It's my pleasure to invite our President, Svetlomira, who will also be moderating the next session. So Svetlomira, over to you. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure, honor, and responsibility to open today's session and to moderate it. On the 19th, we have started with the high-level panel and with the opening of this forum dedicated to advancing a culture of peace in Africa. And as my colleague said, it's a great honor for us to be part of Africa Week and the partnership with the Division Priority Africa. Today, we will start with a panel that is very much aligned of the topic of the whole Africa Week and is dedicated to water. Water as a catalyst for peace, for conversation. And it is my enormous pleasure to share with you that today on stage with us, we will have two panelists, and one will be joining online, and we will have two video interventions today. To start, I would like to invite on stage Dr. Aricha Aureli, who is a hydrologist and international expert in groundwater governance and water diplomacy. She serves as director of the International Association of Hydrologists, liaison team with the United Nations System, and senior advisor to the ASDC Groundwater Management Institute. Her work bridges science, policy, and environmental conflict resolution with a strong focus on inclusive and cooperative groundwater governance. She has been on several international awards and her contribution to transboundary aquifer governance. This is our first panelist for today, followed by on stage Ambassador Christina Kokkinakis, who has served as permanent representative of the European Union on the OECD and Unesco since 2023. A senior diplomat with extensive experience in EU foreign policy and multilateral affairs, she previously served as a Deputy Managing Director, Global and European External Action Service, and as Austria Permanent Representative to the EU Political and Security Committee. Her work focuses on multilateral diplomacy, human rights, and international cooperation, of which we will be speaking as well today. I would like to invite our second panelist on stage. And just to shortly outline how this session will go, we will have 1 hour in which we will have a discussion between the panelists that will be here with us on stage. But we will begin with a video that is sent to us by a member of our steering committee from Professor Kevin Peterson, who will frame the broader context and the major challenges surrounding groundwater governance, climate disruption, and shared security in Africa. With this, I would like to ask the colleagues to play the first video that will open the discussion for the next panelists to come. Thank you.
I'm honored to have served on the organizing committee of the UNESCO NGO Forum on advancing a culture of peace in Africa. I work for the Southern African Development Community Groundwater Management Institute and also as an adjunct professor in groundwater governance and UNESCO chair in hydrogeology at the University of the Western Cape in South Africa. My participation in this session is through the International Association of Hydrogeologists. The challenges before us are urgent, systemic, and deeply interconnected. Climate disruption is intensifying droughts, floods, and rainfall variability, while demographic change and infrastructure strains are placing ever greater pressure on already fragile water systems. For many communities, secure access to safe water can no longer be taken for granted. But water scarcity rarely acts alone. More often, it operates as a stress multiplier, intensifying existing social, economic, and governance pressures in contexts where inequality, exclusion, and institutional fragility are already present. Water stress can heighten vulnerability and strain social cohesion. Recognizing these linkages is essential if we are to move beyond reactive crisis management and towards cooperative solutions rooted in prevention, equity, and shared resilience. Beneath our feet lies one of Africa's most strategic, yet too many overlooked assets. Transboundary aquifers, underground water reserves that extend across national borders, already sustains millions and hold immense potential for regional cooperation and stability. Globally, 426 shared aquifers have been mapped, 72 of them in Africa. Together, they underlie 40% of the continent and support roughly 1/3 of the population. The scale is extraordinary, an estimated 0.66 million cubic kilometers of stored groundwater, roughly 100 times Africa's annual renewable freshwater supply. In an era of increasing climate variability, groundwater is an indispensable buffer against drought and disruption. Yet only 25% of the countries sharing these aquifers have formal cooperation agreements in place. The result is a strategic shared resource too often managed without equally shared rules, leaving communities exposed to overuse, contamination, and preventable cross-border tension. Strengthening cooperation around these aquifers is therefore not only an environmental and development imperative, it's also a concrete investment in peace building and collective security. Where then should our hope lie? It lies in recognizing that water governance must be grounded in environmental justice so that benefits and burdens of water access are shared fairly rather than concentrated in the hands of a few. It resides in inclusive decision-making that is willing to ask difficult but necessary questions. It lies in elevating the voices of women, smallholder farmers, and indigenous communities. It's not only a matter of principle, it is essential to building the trust, legitimacy, and social cohesion on which durable cooperation depends. Hope also resides in our collective willingness to govern shared water systems together. Many of Africa's rivers and aquifers cross national borders, and fair and transparent rules need to be in place. Water does not recognize borders. If we govern it wisely and inclusively, it can become not only a source of division, but one of the strongest foundations for cooperation, resilience, and shared security. My hope that this NGO forum amplifies that message and helps it move from aspiration to action. Thank you very much.
If I may, I have noticed that many of you were taking photo, especially at a certain slide, which was related to statistics. Sometimes when we see the numbers, we start to realize the importance and the urgency of the situation. I would like to thank Professor Peterson for outlining the main topic of today's conversation. With this, maybe because he also spoke a lot about the groundwater, and I would like to invite Madam Aureli on stage for her presentation, and maybe to little bit, or you can sit, of course, absolutely, yes, to maybe underline a little bit the importance of some of the topics that Mr. Peterson spoke about in his overall presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. I will give a few slides in order to be more precise and at the same time to attract more your attention. Yeah, my presentation will go about why groundwater, these invisible resources, and why we call it, why the hydrogeologist like me, we call it the invisible resource. Okay, let's start saying that there are approximately 40% of the world population that lives in transboundary rivers, lakes, and aquifer, and only a fifth of countries have cross-border agreements. There are 153 countries in the planet that share 1, 2, or 3 transboundary aquifers. Well, why groundwater? Why groundwater is so important for the planet, for the people, for prosperity? Because the groundwater is contained in particular geological system called aquifers that are under our feet, under the soil. They have the capacity to store huge volume of water. And by the way, the most important volume in cubic meters of fresh water is stored under the soil by the aquifers. And why this groundwater contained in this aquifer is important for our planet, for our life? Because groundwater contribute 50% of the drinking water that we use, 40% of food production, so irrigated crops, 35% of industrial activities, half of the ecosystem are supported by groundwater, and groundwater provide also the base flow of rivers. Kevin has already gave us the 426 number for transboundary aquifers. I would like to ask your attention to this map that has been prepared by the UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program. After 10 years of work, they have mapped, together with the International Association of Hydrogeologists and the IGRAC Center, the 426 transboundary aquifer of the globe. But why these invisible resources until now has not received the same attention than river basin and lakes? Because unfortunately there are several gaps. I can list 3 gaps. One is knowledge and capacity. There is very little knowledge and capacity and investments on assessment of aquifers. And when the science is there, policy really doesn't listen to this science, so there is a real gap in implementation. And then groundwater legislation. Not only transboundary aquifer legislation, but also groundwater legislation is very weak in many countries. And when you don't have a national legislation on groundwater and you don't have groundwater institutions, even when you manage river basin, then it's very difficult to start cooperation with the neighboring countries because you don't have your tools at home. And well, why aquifers are important? Because these particular geological structures have 3 great capacities. They can help us to adapt, to resile, and to mitigate for climate change. Well, Kevin said that we have 72 transboundary aquifers in Africa. The last report of the Africa Water Vision, 70% of Africa population rely on groundwater, but there is only 6% of irrigated lands that are using groundwater. As I said, we have instruments that are very well applied around the world for river basin and lakes and international lakes, but only 3 instruments on international law are really related to transboundary waters. One is the UN Convention on the Law of Non-Navigational Use of International Watercourses, but this is mainly for surface water. The other one is the UN Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes, with some groundwater inside. And the third one is the United Nations International Law Commission, so the 6th committee at the UN General Assembly that prepared the convention articles, 19 articles on the law of transboundary aquifers. There are good news for Africa, because there are 14 countries that are now parties of the UN Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes. And you can see the list of these countries there. The last one, very recently, was Botswana. Well, takeaway. As we say, groundwater is very strategic for Africa. Gender equality is a key enabler for achieving resilient water system. Water cooperation, cross-border risks are escalating without shared framework. And just this year, we will have the 3rd UN Intergovernmental Conference on Water in Abu Dhabi in December. And one of the topics that will be debated by the countries is exactly water cooperation. So how to foster water cooperation in order to avoid conflicts and to build some ground for peace. Having said that, in particular for the SADC population, in particular for the sub-Saharan Africa and the SADC region, groundwater is important, but what is very much missed is now the real management of surface and groundwater, in particular for urban areas and big cities. Something that we call conjunctive management, that we are now being very much developed by the IAH together with UNECE and the UNESCO Intergovernmental Program. Having said that, we need science and innovation, and these science and innovation have to have a clear focus on ethical values. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madame Aureli. Before we continue with the next speaker, if I may quickly ask the people who are present in the room to see, with a raise of hand, how many of you and your work is related to water in any ways, just to make sure who is in the room and to see the audience. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Just sometimes it's crucial to know with whom we're having the conversation, so that if there is enough time, we could possibly open as well the floor for any questions or remarks on your behalf. Maybe we can move on with the next panelist today, Ambassador Kokkinakis. There are some words that were came from Professor Peterson, but also from Madame Aureli, and I think that is quite crucial when we talk about water, to talk about water diplomacy as well, and to bring to the knowledge, to the audience also the framework and the preventive diplomacy in climate resilience as well. So from this point of view, how can maybe international cooperation support African-led solutions and strengthen regional stabilities, water governance, when we talk about water diplomacy and governance?
Svetlomira, voilà. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you so much. And also thanks to previous speakers, very inspiring remarks. And first of all, congratulations that you managed to be part of the Africa Week with the NGO Liaison Committee. So I think this is a big first step, and I hope that many more will follow. First of all, let me tell you that indeed, related to your question, water lies pretty much at the, I would say, at the transboundary also between peace, security, between resilience, between building societies that respect human rights, and where there is a place for everyone, everywhere. So we are coming from this perspective as European Union. We strongly believe that water scarcity, and this has been demonstrated already by previous speakers, can indeed lead to situations that are unstable and can add to fragility worldwide, especially in Africa, but basically everywhere. I would like to mention a couple of points where we are investing ourselves a lot. Access to clean drinking water is a human right. It is related to Article 2 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, so you will not find there an explicit mentioning of the right to water, but we deduct it from Article 2 in the UDHR, and we are working as European Union to have that respected by all governments, because it's governments who need to make sure that human rights are promoted and defended. We have a couple of initiatives we are leading on as European Union. They are called well, you might have heard about the Global Gateway. So they are all part of the Global Gateway initiatives. Many of them are in partnership with African institutions, because we strongly believe that there should be an ownership by national communities and by the countries themselves. So everything we do when it comes to supporting water, drinking water projects is done in conjunction and in partnership with the countries concerned. I would like to also mention the crucial role of human rights defenders. This is you, but this is basically everyone here. So you asked who are the colleagues here, or the people the participants here who has to do with water. Well, another question could be who are the participants here who have to do with human rights, and I guess everyone has, because it's a global issue, and so one point of appreciation for the human rights defenders that are also working in the environmental field, obviously, and another point of appreciation for UNESCO, for this very house, which is extremely engaged when it comes to water. I'd also like to flag that this year's Europe Day event, 2026, was put under the heading of the right to safe drinking water in the age of climate change and mis and disinformation. And I'm happy to see that this is definitely a topic that is also taken up now here. And it's more than necessary. Let me say a couple of points also on the aspects of preventive diplomacy. So you asked me about water diplomacy. One of the major points is the element of prevention. So we would like to prevent conflicts, crises, and we do water diplomacy also to help to build peaceful societies and to help to rebuild societies after conflict and crisis. Let me just check. I can mention a couple of our EU Global Gateway projects, which are especially directed to women and girls. Let me mention this aspect as well when it comes to water diplomacy. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable when it comes to access to drinking water. You know that it's very often a female job to go out and come back with fresh water. We have a couple of projects in Africa, as I said, for instance in Senegal, but we also have projects in Sudan together with UNESCO, which is funded by the European Union and which was launched in 2023. And I think this is where I would leave it, but not without underlining that water diplomacy can already be done in partnership with the countries, with the communities, with civil society and with youth. And this is what we are heading to, and I think we are only at the beginning of many challenges ahead, but be assured that the EU is engaged, is there, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Koknakis. And maybe I would like to catch one phrase that you mentioned, speaking about communities. I would like to maybe underline as well that on the next panel on education, the topic about water, education, and the role of women is also quite crucial and essential. It is something that needs to stay in the base of the conversations that we're having, because when we talk about water, we don't just talk about water itself. We need to engage it in a way that is relatable to people and with the realities that they live in. And maybe speaking about communities, it might be time for us to have our next panelist who will be joining us online today. And this is Brian Murove, who is a water and environmental director at WASADC Zimbabwe, an organization focused on water research, technical advisory services, and regional cooperation in Southern Africa. Trained in hydrology, he has worked on environmental impact assessments, groundwater studies, and water feasibility projects in collaboration with regional and international partners. He is as well actively engaged in international water diplomacy to continue the conversation throughout the International Association of Hydrologists and UN-related initiatives. Before I want to make sure that we have connection with Brian online, and maybe say that I would love to hear from him, from the experience that he has on Southern Africa and the work that he does. How can transboundary water cooperation become a tool for peace building? Because the topic of today's conversation, and let's not forget it, is water as a catalyst for peace, for cooperation. And how can regional stability and multilateral dialogue emerge from that? Just waiting our sign to see if Brian is online so that we can join. Hello, Brian. Good day. Hello, Brian. Just we want to make sure that we can hear you well enough, just to facing a little technical issue at this stage, which we'll try to solve very quickly. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, beautiful. Just waiting a sign from the colleagues so that we can hear from Brian. Brian, as we cannot hear you very well, I would suggest to the colleagues, if they don't mind.
I'm not sure if my network is very much efficient.
So maybe we can switch a little bit the program today. This is what usually happens when everything is live, as you know. I would suggest that while we are trying to manage the technical issue with Brian, maybe we can move forward to something that was, and I would like to ask the colleague maybe to let him know that we will get in touch with him in just a couple of minutes when we find a solution. But in the meantime, I would like to recall something that I find quite crucial, which was mentioned at the very beginning, and you will hear very much about in the following sessions as well. This is a call for action that was born from the partnership that we had with the Division Priority Africa. And this call for action is advancing a culture of peace in Africa. From this call, we have received 20 different projects from a variety of countries, because the call is open to NGOs, not only in official partnership with Unesco, but variety of NGOs that can present their activities, which are happening throughout the year or even at the beginning of next year, which are underlining how do they advance a culture of peace, regardless of the expertise that they hold. And today, one of the members of our steering committee from the International Pharmaceutical Federation has prepared an example that we would like to underline, because sometimes we speak about a subject, but it's quite necessary to have concrete examples from which we can catch a little inspiration in order to continue the conversation ahead. So if I can maybe ask the colleagues to play the video from Rafi from the International Pharmaceutical Federation in order to hear an example, and then we can move on, continue the conversation, and try to have Brian with us again.
Hello everyone, my name is Rafi Krashny. I'm the chairperson of pharmacy education for IPSF, which is the International Pharmaceutical Students Federation. I'm also a member of the steering committee in this International NGOs Forum by UNESCO. And today I'll be presenting you our little project prepared by IPSF. Today, I'm happy to be presenting you our project, which is Safe Water, Safe Future, Writing Policy That Saves Lives, which is a joint collaboration between EcoClim Africa and IPSF Afro-Regional Office. This virtual program, or this virtual course, actually has the point of connecting environmental issues or actions with public health endeavors through the One Health approach. And the project actually focuses more on major challenges affecting communities, such as antimicrobial resistance, other problems including water and scarcity, poor sanitation, and chemical toxicity caused by illegal mining, for example. What makes this project very unique is that it's not only an awareness type of project, it's also a practical skill building type of workshop for youth and students as a whole. In a way that students are trained on how to write effective policy briefs and become stronger advocates for safer water and healthier communities. The final objective, I would say, is that through this project we are aiming to empower youth and young healthcare professionals plus climate advocates to work together and really create a real impact at both local and a global level. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you're having a great time during the International NGOs Forum. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
This is the example from Rafi, and I hope that the international conference in December, when we have here, we can maybe outline even more examples from different fields and expertise. If the panelists on stage don't mind, I would suggest, because I saw with a raise of hand different people who are interested or working on the topic, to maybe shortly open the floor to see if there are any questions or comments at this stage. And if not, we can continue the conversation here and try to join Brian in the conversation a little bit later. So now I would like to open the floor to you. If there are any comments at this stage or any questions that arise from the previous presentations that you saw from Kevin at the beginning, or yes, I see one question at the back. Do you have the microphone in front of you?
Oui, bonjour et merci de me donner la parole. Je suis Lisbeth Gouin, je suis représentante de l'OMEP, l'Organisation mondiale éducation préscolaire. Je voulais vous rappeler qu'en 2015, nous avons fait, je pense, le 3e forum des ONG. Nous étions en Afrique, à Yamoussoukro. Et le thème du forum était l'accès à l'eau pour tous, des paroles aux actes. Nous avons eu 2 jours de forum passionnants puisque le public africain était présent. Il y a eu une résolution à la fin de ce forum et depuis, des ONG se sont emparées du projet de formation des techniciens hydrologues puisque le problème était le problème de la maintenance de l'eau. Ce projet a fonctionné avec le plan de participation de l'Unesco et il est encore en vigueur. Donc, il y a plus d'une centaine de personnes, hommes et femmes, avec priorité aux femmes, qui ont été formées pour la maintenance. Voilà, c'est un travail réel, c'était des paroles aux actes et ça a été fait depuis 2015, donc je tenais à le rappeler. Voilà, merci.
Thank you. As I see another person, I would just like to ask if there is any reflection from the participants.
Ça marche? Oui. C'est évident que il faut vraiment changer la mentalité et éduquer et préparer la jeunesse à ces nouveaux approches de coopération et de diplomatie de l'eau et de connaissances. C'est sûr que ces activités sont fondamentales et l'éducation est à la base de notre capacité de gérer nos ressources naturelles. Un des problèmes justement dans la diplomatie de l'eau, c'est le fait que les études sont très compartimentées, sont des silos. Par exemple, nous avons travaillé pendant des années avec les juristes de droit international des Nations Unies, de la Commission des Nations Unies pour le droit international, pour préparer ces articles de droit sur les aquifères transfrontaliers. Mais il n'y avait même pas un juriste qui avait une idée de qu'est-ce que c'est un aquifère. La même chose pour beaucoup des économistes, sauf celles qui sont vraiment spécialisées dans la gestion des ressources naturelles. Et il n'y en a pas beaucoup. Et c'est la même chose pour les ingénieurs. Ils n'ont pas vraiment des études de sciences sociales ou de, justement, coopération, diplomatie, etc. On va vers un monde qui a besoin d'une approche UNESCO, c'est-à-dire une approche multidisciplinaire que cette maison peut effectivement donner comme exemple la capacité d'avoir toutes ces compétences, les océans, l'eau, les sciences sociales, la culture, l'éducation, et tout ça doit faire partie d'une même approche dans la gestion de l'eau, que c'est fondamental pour la vie de la planète, des hommes et de l'environnement. Vive l'UNESCO!
Thank you so much, Madam Aureli. I have to say I agree, and in these types of conversation, it is quite crucial to have different perspectives included in order for us to have a critical conversation at the end. I see a young gentleman over there with a question. Please, you have the floor. And please present yourself when asking the question. Thank you.
Oui, bonjour, merci déjà pour la présentation que vous avez faite toutes les deux. C'était très enrichissant. Mon nom est Alain Loubini, en fait je suis ingénieur dans les domaines de l'eau. En fait j'ai une question en rapport avec la résolution des conflits. Hein. Je pense que nous savons tous en fait le bassin versant de surface sont différents de ceux des aquifères en fait. Alors dans un contexte de résolution des conflits, vous vous y prenez comment lorsque tout est un peu confus comme ça? C'est quoi l'approche que vous mettez de l'avant?
Heureusement, vous êtes un ingénieur, nous sommes là pour enlever un peu de cette confusion. Du point de vue géologique, du point de vue naturel, certaines actions sont claires. C'est vrai que la dynamique d'un aquifère est complètement différente de celle qui est la dynamique d'un fleuve, d'un bassin. I can continue in French, or you prefer I go on... It's the same? OK. C'est complètement différent. C'est pour ça que maintenant, il faut vraiment, dans tous ceux qui sont les projets de gestion de bassins, d'avoir aussi des connaissances sur la dynamique des eaux souterraines. Je pense que vous le connaissez mieux que moi. Une chose qui est relative justement à la diplomatie de l'eau et à la coopération. Si dans un bassin versant d'un fleuve, l'évidence du upstream, downstream, c'est-à-dire de watershed avec le bas fluvial, est évident, et ça pose beaucoup de problèmes parce que ça peut créer effectivement, si ce fleuve est partagé, des conflits. Pour les aquifères, upstream, downstream n'a aucun sens, vous le savez mieux que moi, parce que justement on a un système tridimensionnel qui a une dynamique de flux de l'eau souterraine dans l'aquifère complètement différente. Et selon comment vous pompez cette eau, vous changez un peu la dynamique de l'aquifère. Mais vous n'avez pas un upstream, downstream. C'est particulier, en effet, ça devrait être plus simple, travailler sur les aquifères transfrontaliers, mais les politiciens, ils ne le savent pas. Et ils ont encore plus peur. Pourquoi? Parce que quelque chose qu'on ne voit pas, parce que les aquifères, on ne les voit pas, on n'a pas de drones qui peuvent nous donner des aquifères profonds. On n'a pas un peu de satellites, mais bon, certains satellites pour les grands aquifères. Alors, bien évidemment, certaines données des aquifères sont considérées stratégiques et justement, ils ne veulent pas le partager. Je ne sais pas si j'ai...
Thank you for this detailed explanation, Madame Aureli. I would maybe give the floor shortly to Ambassador Kokkinakis.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted... Okay, oh yeah, excellent. Thank you. No, I wanted to add one point on the education aspect that was mentioned by the speaker before posing this question. Of course, lots of education has to do with higher education, absolutely, and we see very many experts here with us. But it also has to do with daily education, education of your own children. And we have amongst the EU 27 member states, one member state that has the lowest water consumption, and this is Malta. And we had a colleague from Malta at the panel of Europe Day last week, and he really made a point how important the education is at home of your children when it comes to water consumption. So this is an ongoing issue where I think also we as European Union are pretty much asked to become a bit better and also to reduce the water consumption.
Thank you so much. I think that was crucial to be mentioned in this conversation today. And as I see that my colleagues gave me a sign that we can hear Brian, unfortunately we won't be able to see him. I hope you memorized his face that was already on the screen, and now we can hear his voice. Dear colleagues, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Brian Murobe.
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm just going to speak on how transboundary water cooperation can serve as a tool for peace building, regional stability, and multilateral dialogue across Africa and beyond. So to begin with, I would like to note that this is a complex subject, and one of the very most important issues is cultural diversity and communication. So there's need for training of people who can work as communicators in the framework of transboundary aquifers. Stakeholders with competent communication skills should be trained and appointed, and this should facilitate intercultural dialogues. People communicating should be directly taken from the different communities involved. Languages of various social players who are involved in the process should be taken into account. So to shed more light on the issue of cultural diversity and communication, many a times we realize that transboundary groups or parties are often hearing and communicating different alternating and conflicting messages. And at the end, this will actually result in conflicts. So the issue of cultural diversity and communication is very much important. And there is need to train people who are able to communicate in different languages and to facilitate intercultural dialogue. Moving on from that point, I also think that the issue of joint environmental impact assessments is very much important. And some transboundary agreements also emphasize the need for environmental impact assessments. And governments can actually come into play into this issue of combined environmental impact assessments, and involved governments should actually approve the reports which could have been undertaken within the concept of transboundary aquifers. To emphasize further on the issue of environmental impact assessments in the transboundary aquifers, baseline EIR reports will actually determine the status of transboundary aquifers. So this is a very important aspect, and it can actually help to promote regional stability and also facilitate multicultural dialogue. Going on further, the results of joint assessment, joint analysis should be aligned to technical problem solving. For instance, the issue of technical groundwater permits that are issued in a transboundary aquifer to limit the extraction for prevention of overdraft. Water rights in transboundary aquifers should be restricted to reasonable beneficial use, consistent with the constitutional frameworks. There's need for an international law for transboundary aquifers. And at the end, people should obey the law. So I think that's another very important aspect, which is to do with the water rights, which can actually limit or prevent over abstraction of water in the transboundary aquifers. Going on further, I would also want to note that effective transboundary aquifer management is necessary to protect the resource from depletion. So you realize that in as much as we have improper management of transboundary aquifers, at the end, we are going to have depletion of the groundwater. And once the groundwater is depleted, hence we are likely to have conflicts. So conflicts are not likely to emanate in as much as there's proper management, in as much as aquifers are not going to deplete. So I will just try again to give an example framework where two states agree to cooperate on managing an aquifer. Once there's an agreement, there's need for these countries to look towards international legal framework for guidance to draw up a joint mechanism. So I think the issue of international legal frameworks is very much important in as much as we are saying that we want to create regional stability and we want to promote multicultural dialogue. I will also try to draw something from the UNESCO Protocol on Water and Health, which emphasizes that parties bordering the same transboundary waters should cooperate and assist each other. They should exchange information and share knowledge about the transboundary waters, the problems and risks they present, and endeavor to establish joint water management. Mutually, they should assist each other in responding to outbreaks, whether they are water-related outbreaks and other challenges. So I think just to wrap up my presentation, the very most important aspect in the context of transboundary aquifers must really draw some practical examples in the issue of cultural diversity and communication. And there's need to train people who are able to communicate in different languages, different cultures, in an effort to improve the communication, because we are trying to avoid people from interpreting different messages in different ways. And in as much as people get to interpret the messages differently, there will be conflicts. So I think that marks the end of my presentation. And also, I would just want to highlight that neighbors may share common destinies and common dangers. Thus, close cooperation is imperative for the survival of all states in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian, and especially I maybe choose a little part of his intervention when it comes to intercultural communication and the importance of the communication that he underlined in his intervention. And as I see that we're moving towards the end of today's panel, I would maybe like to shortly give the floor to the panelists on stage for something that Professor Peterson at the beginning of this session closed his presentation, and it was related to the hope. What is the hope when it comes to the future of water cooperation in Africa, when we talk about building peace in the conversation of water as a catalyst of peace and cooperation?
I mean, Africa is definitely one of the most advanced regions of the world, except, of course, some European countries, because we have the Water Framework Directive that is really regulating all countries' access and management of water. But looking at the planet, Africa is really one of the most advanced countries in coordination about water. The African Minister Committee on Water is something that is there since tens of years already. Was one of the first real coordination at the ministerial level panel that make resolutions and provide recommendations to all countries of Africa for water management. The SADC region, for example, is very much advanced because the SADC water legal legislation corp is one of the most advanced because it's really based on the UN International Law for Water conventions. And the fact that 14 African countries have ratified the Water Convention that is based in Geneva, that is one of the most, let's say, comprehensive because there has surface water and groundwater, and because there is a secretariat and it's also a dispute resolution framework. It's giving the idea how much countries in Africa are interested in taking on board the real idea that the need for cooperation is crucial for them. So definitely it's really very good what Africa is doing on water. The future, let's hope that at the UN Intergovernmental Conference in Abu Dhabi this year, member states, it's not the UN who decide, are member states that decide. Member states will decide to take firm commitments to improve on water cooperation. Let's hope.
Yeah, to answer your question against the background of climate change, of geopolitical uncertainties, I think we can all express our hope that water should unite communities. Water should not divide countries, should not divide societies. Water should be a catalyst for preventing conflicts, crises, and for enabling societies built on human rights, where each and everyone has enough access to enough clean drinking water, and to enough water in general, and this gives us hope.
It does indeed, and I would like to thank our panelists today for this wonderful discussion. I believe a beginning of an even bigger one that is very much needed, and I think that this panel is the wonderful beginning of this forum that will move now to the panel on education, that we also mentioned the importance of the educational practices as well as when we talk about water as a catalyst for cooperation. The first point is the understanding and the need of the resources in order to build communities in a way that they can move forward to concrete solutions, I would have to say. After the panel on education, we'll continue with the panel on youth. With this, I would like to thank all the participants for their participation today, and to the audience, thank you. In a few minutes, we continue with the next one. Thank you.
All right. This was a wonderful session. Svetlomira, thank you very much. And to all the panelists, I think they provided a very valuable information around water, and I think this is one of the most important and pertinent projects that's moving in. And as we move forward to our next session, and the next session is reimagining education systems as engines of peace. And I think I'm going to invite our moderator, who's also our member of the liaison committee, Ms. Nazarene. Nazarene, can you please come on the stage? And now the show is yours. Over to you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Merci Ramnek. Chers invités, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour, bienvenue à toutes et à tous. Dans la poursuite des activités de ce forum, j'ai le plaisir d'introduire le deuxième panel de la journée sur la thématique « Repenser les systèmes éducatifs comme moteur de la paix ». Ce panel s'inscrit dans la continuité des premiers échanges que nous avons pu voir sur le panel 1 et qui nous a permis d'explorer, entre autres, la gestion collaborative de l'eau et de souligner l'importance de l'éducation et de la formation dans le cadre de la gestion de l'eau. Et donc, ce panel va se pencher sur la réflexion de l'éducation comme outil de transformation sociale et de prévention des conflits. L'éducation dépasse la seule transmission des savoirs. Elle structure les valeurs, les comportements et les relations sociales. Lorsqu'elle est inclusive, contextualisée, donc adaptée aux contextes locaux et accessibles, elle devient un facteur de justice sociale et de résilience collective. Ce panel va donc nous permettre d'explorer les systèmes éducatifs et voir comment ils peuvent devenir des moteurs de paix en intégrant inclusion, participation citoyenne et engagement communautaire. Nous allons croiser 5 perspectives complémentaires entre terrain, innovation sociale et cadres internationaux. Et pour ce faire, nous allons avoir le plaisir d'accueillir 3 panélistes sur la scène, un panéliste qui sera avec nous en ligne et 2 témoignages vidéo. Donc, je commence par inviter les panélistes qui sont avec nous sur scène. Vicky Lovelock, directrice de CCIVS, the International Coordination Committee of Youth Organizations for Voluntary Service. Please, Vicky. Vénuste Nyangabo, champion pour la paix de Peace and Sport et fondateur de la fondation Vénuste Nyangabo. Merci Vénuste de nous rejoindre. Et Kwani Kirkwani, spécialiste de programme à la section de l'éducation à la citoyenneté mondiale et pour la paix de l'Unesco. Merci Kwani. Juste pour votre information, nous aurons un 4e panéliste en ligne, Chermbo, de la Coalition des organisations en synergie pour la défense de l'éducation publique. Et les 2 témoignages vidéo seront présentés par Esoyomewe Adamagnon, de la Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, et de Vic Tonel Maonji, de CCIVS. Et donc, pour ouvrir ce panel, nous allons commencer par le témoignage de Esoyomewe Adamagnon, qui est praticienne en conciliation de la paix et membre du comité de pilotage de la Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. La Ligue est engagée sur des questions de désarmement, de justice sociale et de droits des femmes, tout en soutenant des initiatives de paix ancrées dans les communautés. À travers son témoignage vidéo, Esoyomewe partagera une réflexion sur la nécessité de repenser les systèmes éducatifs comme des leviers de prévention de conflits et de construction de paix. Merci de lancer le témoignage de Esoyomewe.
Mesdames et messieurs, soyez les bienvenus à cette session sur l'éducation. Je m'appelle Adamagnon Esoyomewe, je suis chercheure praticienne en genre, paix et éducation, spécialiste en développement et gestion de projets. Le thème de cette session est intitulé « Réinventer l'éducation comme fondement de la paix et de la cohésion sociale en Afrique ». La question qui structure l'ensemble de nos réflexions est la suivante. quel type de système éducatif pour prévenir les conflits en Afrique. Dans de nombreux contextes africains, les systèmes éducatifs ne sont pas seulement affectés par des conflits, ils en sont souvent des générateurs, car l'éducation n'est jamais neutre. Soit elle construit, soit elle détruit. Elle rassemble ou elle divise. Elle peut être génératrice de problèmes ou engendrer la paix et la cohésion sociale. De nombreux systèmes éducatifs africains ont, dans plusieurs cas, été plus efficaces pour produire de la division que de la cohésion. C'est pourquoi nous estimons que la pédagogie de la paix doit désormais devenir une dimension fondamentale de la formation. Dans l'Afrique d'aujourd'hui, menacée par l'instabilité, les questions sécuritaires et l'injustice, où certains enfants sont systématiquement marginalisés en raison du genre, du handicap, de l'ethnie ou de la géographie, l'école sème parfois des graines de la frustration et de la rancœur au lieu de celle de la paix. La réforme de l'éducation exige une réinvention du contenu, de l'accès, du développement de la pensée critique, de l'inclusion et de l'identité partagée afin de transformer les moteurs de conflit en moteurs de paix. Il devient donc urgent de renforcer les compétences liées au dialogue, à la responsabilité civique et à l'esprit critique. Et l'éducation demeure l'un des principaux leviers pour y parvenir. L'éducation doit être en son cœur un instrument de paix capable de reproduire la société que nous espérons et non celle que nous craignons de devenir. Je trouve donc cette session particulièrement nécessaire car j'espère vivement des analyses et une réflexion profonde sur ce qui doit réellement être fait. Il ne suffit pas d'insérer le bon contenu pour obtenir automatiquement la cohésion sociale. Je voudrais donc appeler à une réflexion plus contextuelle. Je n'espère pas, à l'issue de cette session, un modèle unique de système éducatif à exporter ou un programme à déployer en Afrique. Nous voulons qu'on dégage ensemble des principes fondateurs, partager des expériences et proposer des actions adaptées à nos réalités pour construire une éducation capable d'être un bouclier contre toute forme de violence. Nous attendons donc avec intérêt vos réflexions, vos suggestions pratiques et méthodologiques, ainsi que vos recommandations qui serviront de fondement pour la construction de sociétés africaines plus pacifiques et exemptes de violence. Merci et bonne section.
Merci à Esoyo Mewe pour ce témoignage qui a permis de voir que l'éducation peut être aussi bien un facteur de création de dynamique de paix qu'au centre des conflits et des violences. Elle a surtout souligné l'importance de la formation et l'importance d'inclure dans le système éducatif tout ce qui a trait à l'inclusion, à la pensée critique et au dialogue. Je me tourne à notre deuxième panéliste, Madame Vicky Lovelock, et directrice de CCIVS. Alors, une petite présentation, on vous rappelle de ce que CCIVS fait, entre autres. Alors, CCIVS promeut le volontariat international comme espace d'apprentissage non formel et de construction de la paix, à travers des expériences interculturelles et des projets collectifs. Et ma question pour vous, Vicky, est justement comment est-ce que ces cadres non formels peuvent compléter ou influencer les systèmes éducatifs formels, justement dans cet objectif de construction de paix.
Thank you, Nisreen, for your question. I want to take you all back to 1920, to eastern France. In the village of Aix-non-Argonne, it was almost entirely destroyed by the First World War. A group of volunteers arrived from countries that had only recently been at war with one another. Together with local inhabitants, they cleared the debris, they rebuilt homes and daily life. Their months of hard work and simple living became an early example of what would later be described as a technique of peace. What made this extraordinary was not only the reconstruction itself, but it was the context in which it took place. Local authorities anticipated resistance from the inhabitants as former enemies were working side by side. Yet people chose not to meet on a battlefield, but in the shared act of reconstruction, learning to live and work together across conflict, language, nationality, and history. And this is an example of non-formal education for peace. This practice spread globally, and with UNESCO's support in 1948, the Coordinating Committee for International Voluntary Service came into place, or CCIVS. And this is directly relevant to our discussion today. When we talk about education systems as engines of peace, we should also ask what kind of learning actually creates peaceful societies. For more than a century, international voluntary service has been exactly that. People living collectively, working across difference, solving practical problems together, and engaging with communities very different than their own. And we also have evidence of this impact today. Since 2013, CCIVS and its members have conducted research in more than 80 countries. Volunteers consistently report increases in communication skills, cultural openness, participation, autonomy, and problem solving after their projects. Participants from marginalized groups, including migrants, refugees, and young people facing barriers to participation, often show the strongest gains. And one finding stands out especially. The meaningfulness of the work itself was linked to every major learning outcome, because peace education cannot remain abstract. People learn cooperation by practicing it. And one example of that is Voices for Change. It's a CCIVS-led project which was co-financed by the European Union and run in partnership with our friends, the International Music Council. Connected partners across Africa, Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Palestine through volunteering, music, storytelling, and advocacy on environmental and social justice. And the project began with a simple principle that local realities should shape global conversations. Stories shared by volunteers and communities helped create the music video Echoes of Nature, which you can find on YouTube, produced by volunteers and artists in Kenya. And these same experiences also shaped a new advocacy strategy for CCIVS. Last November, in our General Assembly in South Africa, CCIVS adopted the Volunteer Rights Framework, affirming 8 rights for all volunteers: recognition of learning, equitable mobility, climate justice, decolonized funding, safe and inclusive participation, respect for local communities, protection in conflict-affected contexts, and meaningful youth participation in governance. Our members are putting these principles into practice through initiatives such as the Living Earth campaign, which connects environmental action, education, and peace building. In 2026, across Africa, through storytelling, civic learning, and community action, young people have been sharing experience of conflict resolution, interfaith dialogue, climate adaptation, and resilience. Videos, podcasts, and testimonies created with local civil society organizations and shared through community and digital networks together form a living curriculum for peace education rooted in real experience. Inequality, environmental pressure, education, and social cohesion are not separate realities in people's lives. They consistently interlap, and we especially see that in our network. Climate justice is peace building, participation is resilience, and volunteering is education. So perhaps the question is not just how we redesign education systems, it's whether our systems are capable of recognizing the forms of learning, participation, and knowledge that communities are already creating for themselves and have done so forever. Volunteers in our movements are practicing cooperation across differences. They're learning how to live together, and they're building cultures of peace in ways that are practical, local, deeply human, and fundamentally life-changing. And this leads us to our next presentation, which is Victor Nell, and I'll let you, Nisreen, continue with that. Thank you.
Merci. Merci Vicky d'avoir présenté le travail de CCIVS et d'avoir mis en lumière quelques initiatives qui justement nous permettent de voir l'importance des apprentissages hors école dans la formation du citoyen engagé. Et justement, nous allons voir avec Victor Nell un exemple, un projet de CCIVS qui permet d'illustrer l'engagement des jeunes et la participation inclusive ainsi que le volontariat. Donc, s'il vous plaît, si vous pouvez lancer la vidéo de Victor Nell. Je vais présenter entre-temps Victor Nell.
My name is Victor Nell Wanjohi, and I'm a member of the CCIVS Youth Committee and engaged in the CCIVS member organization, KVSO Kenya. I would like to share one of the projects we submitted for the quality label, CIBS Skills, and why we see it as a project for a culture of peace. Every year, more than 15,000 young people take part in IBS. They live and work alongside communities. They learn to listen across difference, handle conflict, and think critically about the world they're part of. Here is the problem we face. 50% of these young people tell us they have gained meaningful skills through this experience, but only 30% can demonstrate those skills to a university or an employer. For young people here in Africa, this gap is particularly costly. A young person in Harare or Nairobi or Maputo can spend 2 years coordinating community projects across linguistic and ethnic lines, building a community garden from nothing, and still walk into a job interview with nothing on paper to show for it. This gap is a question of justice. The project CIBS Skills is the answer we're building as part of our CCIBS Volunteer Rights Framework as SCO and recognition. Volunteering is a driver of sustainable development, and the skills gained through IBS must be validated, portable, and formally recognized, because this is not a benefit, but it is a right. Co-financed by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union and the European Youth Foundation of the Council of Europe, CIBS Skills, runs from January 2026 to June 2028. Although it has been over 15 years in the making, we have the testimonies from volunteers and communities, we have the hard data, we know change is happening, and it is happening because IBS now we are ready to certify that change, the contributions made, the skills learned can be certified. Organizations are involved across the world. However, African members of the CCIBS are at the heart of this work. Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mozambique, Botswana, Kenya, and Malawi. What we are building is a digital certification framework that documents, validates, and recognizes the skills young people develop through international voluntary service. The substance of what we certify is what makes this a culture of peace project. The CIBS competence framework includes 29 competences distributed across 7 clusters. Each competence is defined at 3 progressive levels of mastery: intermediate, good, and advanced, with behavioral descriptors for assessment and certification of non-formal learning. Based on years of research, the framework describes the learning path of volunteers and communities that, growing at the individual, interpersonal, and social level, simply learn to be and to live together. Learning together about peace and human rights progressively becomes an opportunity to engage in rights-based advocacy. Learning together about decolonization and bias awareness progressively becomes an opportunity to advocate for structural change in the IBS. Learning together about climate change, civic engagement, and intercultural awareness slowly and safely becomes a certification of the growth of people into agents of peace. Manicaland State University of Applied Sciences in Zimbabwe and Université de Montpellier Paul Valéry in Fantasy on our steering team as co-creators of the framework from the beginning alongside our IBS networks. This year in 2026 is when the work becomes concrete. In August, we are convening in Harare for a youth exchange workshop. 24 young people from our partner organizations across Africa and Europe will test the certification framework, refine it, and shape the criteria together. We will host a partnerships event in Harare, bringing in the African Union, the AU Volunteer Linkage Platform, and the Unesco Regional Office for Southern Africa. After Harare, local advocacy moves into communities across Zimbabwe, Botswana, Mozambique, South Africa, and Malawi. Volunteers themselves will speak to their government, to their universities, and to their employers. The project is supported by a youth steering team who all year long are promoting the project through social media and will join the Harare workshop and an additional workshop in Holoko, Hungary, where 15 young people from around the world will be fed directly into the same effort. We recently met with the UNESCO education sector in Paris, and we'll maintain communication to see how we can work together for competence recognition. This is a call to action that we have 2 universities confirmed at the table. We want more. African universities ready to count their students' volunteer learning for credit. Universities around the world ready to recognize and mobilize the skills learned. Employers ready to read a digital certificate from a person in Bulawayo or Beira with the same seriousness they read a traditional curriculum vitae. There is no question, the impact is here. Now the question is, are the institutions ready to recognize it? This has been Victor Njohi from Nairobi, Kenya, member of the CCIBS Youth Committee and member of KBSO Kenya. Merci beaucoup.
Alors, Victor Njohi est une jeune leader qui est du Kenya et il nous a présenté le projet CIVS Skills qui, j'espère, va pouvoir répondre au challenge qui a été soulevé par Vicky, celui de reconnaître les compétences des jeunes qui travaillent sur le terrain et qui ensuite ont du mal à démontrer la valeur de ces compétences quand elles ont besoin de se réinsérer dans le système éducatif ou dans le marché du travail. En tout cas, good luck et plein succès pour ce projet. Nous poursuivons avec Venuste Nyangabo, champion olympique et fondateur de la fondation Venuste Nyangabo. À travers son parcours et son engagement au Burundi, il montre comment le sport peut devenir un outil puissant d'éducation, de cohésion sociale et de résilience. Il nous présentera le projet Peacemaker du Burundi, une initiative de formation et de mentorat de jeunes et d'acteurs locaux à travers le sport pour promouvoir le dialogue, l'inclusion et la culture de la paix. Alors Vénuste, j'ai pour vous 2 questions. Une première, si vous pouvez nous parler un peu de votre parcours et comment est-ce qu'il a pu, votre parcours de champion olympique bien sûr, et de comment est-ce qu'il a pu éclairer votre engagement en faveur de l'éducation et de la cohésion sociale. Merci.
Merci pour me donner la parole. Je vous fais le parcours de mon enfance jusqu'à ce que je suis en train de réaliser au Burundi. Je partirai à me raconter mon histoire. Je suis du Burundi. C'est un pays qui a toujours vécu des conflits. Nous sommes dans le pays du Grand Lac. Je ne me souviens pas chaque 5 ans qu'il y avait toujours la guerre ethnique. Je me souviens bien quand j'étais à l'école, à cause de la guerre, il y avait beaucoup d'enfants qui abandonnaient l'école précoce parce qu'ils ne pouvaient pas continuer à faire les études. Quand les enfants abandonnent l'école, ça provoquait beaucoup de criminalité. Les enfants ils se jetaient à l'alcool et moi je suis parmi eux. La chance que j'ai eue, je me souviens, on était 54 élèves dans l'école. Seulement 6, ils ont passé l'examen national. Après 6 ans de l'école primaire, il y avait un examen national. Et moi, j'étais parmi les 6 élèves qui ont passé l'examen. Et quand je suis allé à l'école secondaire, j'ai eu la chance d'être à l'internat. Donc, j'étais dans le milieu sécurisé. C'est là où j'ai découvert le sport, c'est là où j'ai rencontré les professeurs d'éducation physique qui m'ont détecté, qui ont vu que je suis un talent dans l'athlétisme. Et alors, chaque fois que je me réveille le matin, je me dis je suis chanceux d'avoir trouvé cette personne qui m'a détecté et que je suis devenu ce que je suis devenu. Là, pour témoigner que, même je dis toujours, je pouvais être un champion olympique, mais si je n'avais pas une entité d'éducation, si je n'avais pas été à l'école, peut-être je n'avais pas la possibilité de transmettre de ce que j'ai vécu. Et puis, j'ai eu la chance de venir en Europe, où j'ai vécu en Italie. J'ai gagné les Jeux olympiques. Quand j'ai gagné les Jeux olympiques, c'était juste une semaine après le coup d'État. J'ai gagné les Jeux olympiques où il n'y avait pas le gouvernement. Et tout le monde me demandait si j'ai gagné pour le Hutu et Tutsi. Je me souviens la réponse que j'ai donnée, c'est j'ai gagné pour toute la nation. J'avais seulement 22 ans. En 1997, une année après, je suis rentré au Burundi parce qu'après les Jeux Olympiques, je ne pouvais pas aller au Burundi parce qu'il y avait la guerre. Là, j'ai été reçu par tous les ministres, le président de la République. Je me souviens même, il m'a donné l'honneur de voyager avec lui dans sa voiture. Là, j'ai compris le valeur d'un champion. Quand on peut inspirer, on peut aussi unir le peuple. Je suis parti de toutes les provinces du pays pour donner l'espoir en disant que je suis grandi avec la guerre et ça ne m'a pas empêché de gagner les Jeux Olympiques. Et voilà, c'est ça qui m'a en 97, donc c'était où je suis parti avec la campagne où je sens que j'ai la responsabilité de changer la mentalité des jeunes parce que je me voyais moi-même. Ce sont les autres qui m'ont changé, pourquoi pas moi-même je peux aider à transformer cette situation où les jeunes sont désespérés pour les changer à une chose positive. Et puis, en 2009, j'ai eu la chance de connaître l'organisation Peace and Sport qui est à Monaco. Nous sommes allés ensemble au Burundi. Ils m'ont dit, nous voudrions que tu sois le champion de la paix. Et moi, je les ai dit, ça veut dire quoi? Comment je peux être utile? Et Joël Bouzou, qui est le fondateur des Jeux d'amitié, il m'a dit, viens avec moi. Nous sommes partis au Burundi. Ce qu'il m'a fait, il m'a fait rapprocher moi-même en fait la médaille olympique avec les autorités politiques. Je me souviens que nous sommes allés au ministre du Sport parce qu'on devrait aller au Congo. Il y avait des casques bleus, on ne pouvait pas passer les frontières. Nous sommes passés à la frontière avec le casque bleu, nous avons organisé Jeux d'amitié. Jeux d'amitié, il réunissait les enfants qui proviennent du Burundi, du Congo et du Rwanda. Et là, vraiment, ça, c'est un témoignage de la diplomatie du sport, ça peut se passer. Parce que j'ai vu les autorités politiques, les représentants des institutions sportives qui sont venus avec moi au Congo, on était à Rovungi. J'ai vu les enfants de 10 ans à 16 ans qui ont passé le moment ensemble, en jouant ensemble, en dansant ensemble. Mais ils ne parlaient pas la même langue, et moi je les ai vus plus sur le terrain. J'ai entendu les belles discours des autorités politiques qui appuyaient les enfants pour qu'ils se donnent au sport. C'est là, j'ai vu ces 250, on a commencé avec 250 enfants, filles et garçons. Imaginez où les pays qui sont en conflit. Et ces enfants, ils ont été choisis pour traverser la frontière. Je sais que les parents, ils n'ont pas les moyens pour les faire voyager. Mais grâce à l'organisation Peace and Sport, ces enfants, ils ont l'opportunité de traverser la frontière. Pourquoi ça? En créant une zone neutre, ça permet de voir exactement est-ce que les gestes sans frontières. Pourquoi pas? Je pense que c'est une chose qui peut favoriser beaucoup, connaître de ce qui se passe de l'autre côté et en voyant que ton proche, ce n'est pas ton ennemi. Et puis, pour la continuité, en 2022, je me suis dit, maintenant, ce que je le fais comme mon nom propre. C'est mieux que je crée une organisation en cadre qui est reconnu par le gouvernement du Burundi. Et ça, j'ai bien vu qu'en créant un cadre local, ça m'a permis de dialoguer avec les institutions religieuses et politiques. Ça a assuré aussi les parents, parce que les parents, quand ils nous amènent les enfants, ils savent qu'il y a une institution qui a des procédures et codes de conduite pour toutes les personnes qui travaillent avec ces enfants. Et puis aussi la chance, c'est que je peux dire, en créant une organisation locale, ça m'a permis aussi d'avoir des accès au financement. Maintenant, j'ai la chance d'être financé par la coopération internationale monégasque que je peux présenter là. C'est une belle chose parce que le changement culturel, créer la culture de sport, il faut une continuité. Si vous imaginez, on a commencé en 2009 et nous continuons. Le Peace and Sport n'a jamais laissé. La coopération monégasque, on a commencé de travailler ensemble depuis 2004. Maintenant, on vient de créer une convention de collaboration jusqu'en 2028. je pense que ça donnait une solidarité pour bien travailler et créer une culture de paix. Voilà.
Merci Vénuste d'avoir partagé avec nous votre parcours et aussi de comment est-ce que vous avez bénéficié ou mis à profit votre propre expérience pour influencer d'autres jeunes et vraiment nous montrer que le sport peut être un facteur qui mobilise au-delà des frontières et au-delà des cultures. Alors ma deuxième question pour vous est justement si vous pouvez nous parler davantage du projet Peacemaker Project et comment est-ce qu'il montre que le sport peut former des jeunes acteurs de paix et renforcer cette cohésion sociale.
Merci. Okay. Non, c'est dans la continuité que je disais, grâce au Peace and Sport, on a commencé avec 2009, on a dit, après en 2022, chaque fois on cherchait de chercher comment transformer les situations pour qu'elles soient radicalisées avec les acteurs locaux. On a, je peux les appeler pacemakers, c'est les constructeurs de la paix. Les constructeurs de la paix, ce sont des personnes que le Peace and Sport il a formées parce que parfois les éducateurs de sport, ils mettent en avant la performance, mais les éducateurs, avant de créer la performance, il faut d'abord créer les hommes. Il faut créer la bonne citoyenneté. Voilà, nous sommes partis pour créer ces ambassadeurs, donc le réseau des éducateurs qui peuvent aider. Et puis, il est resté à choisir où. Je me souviens quand on a commencé à faire des activités, on prenait les enfants de la rue, mais on ne connaissait pas exactement ils viennent d'où. On ne connaissait pas les parents. Donc, c'était difficile de construire une liaison entre les enfants et les parents. En retournant en arrière, vous savez qu'en Afrique, chaque femme peut être au minimum de 5 enfants. Et c'est très difficile de contrôler les enfants à bas âge, de savoir ce qu'ils font à l'école et après l'école. Et avec Peace and Sport, on a essayé de trouver des écoles, on a trouvé des centres communautaires pour que ces places donnent l'accès et les enfants, quand ils terminent l'école, ou bien ils restent à l'école pour faire ses devoirs après faire le sport, ou bien ils restent dans la communauté, dans le centre communautaire où ils peuvent faire du sport. Quand nous avons commencé à former les instructeurs de sport, nous avons mis aussi des femmes. Parce qu'au départ, on a vu qu'il n'y avait pas moins de participation des femmes. La clé que nous avons vue, en passant par les écoles, les parents, les écoles, ils ont compris que c'est une zone sécurisée. Et là, les enfants, les filles, ils ont commencé à pratiquer du sport. Donc, je peux dire que trouver une organisation comme internationale qui essaie, maintenant ça fait plus de 18 ans qu'il est au Burundi. C'est un ONG, je pense qu'il a une vocation incroyable. Et puis maintenant, nous avons vu que on a commencé à Bujumbura, c'est la capitale économique qui est frontalière avec le Congo. Et après, on s'est dit, mais normalement, on parle de l'immigration des Africains qui viennent en Europe, ou bien, mais ils oublient que nous avons aussi exode rural, où les enfants de la rurale, ils viennent vers la ville. Alors, on a emphasisé ça dans le sport, en créant les centres dans la capitale économique, frontalière avec le Congo. Il y a 2 années qu'on a créé un autre centre qui est au sud du pays, qui est frontalier avec la Tanzanie. Comme ça, chaque année, on nous organise des jeux d'amitié. Et ces jeux d'amitié, qu'est-ce qui se passe? On a essayé de dire, résolvons d'abord le problème interne. On a organisé des enfants qui viennent de la ville, ils ont monté à l'intérieur du pays, ils ont rencontré les enfants de la rurale, ils ont passé une journée peut-être à Bujumbura, tout le monde, certains enfants, ils ont l'électricité, mais ils ont passé une nuit où il n'y avait pas d'électricité. Ils ont passé une nuit en allant jouer où il n'y avait pas de douche. Donc, c'est aussi ça, le mélange de la culture, le mélange de la provenance, et ça crée une amitié incroyable entre les enfants. Et, donc, tout ça, c'est possible parce qu'il y a l'école qui nous soutient. La liaison avec les écoles, c'est très important. C'est très important de créer des éducateurs qui comprennent que la performance ne suffit pas quand on n'a pas enseigné les enfants pour le respect entre eux. Il faut aussi créer quand une équipe de l'école il gagne, ça crée le sens d'appartenance. Maintenant, on a commencé avec 250 enfants, nous sommes arrivés à 600 enfants et nous avons créé une équipe équipe de football féminin à Bujumbura qui rencontre l'équipe de l'intérieur. On a créé une équipe de basket féminin et masculin. Nous avons une équipe d'athlétisme, en fait, dans l'ensemble où chaque zone il travaille pour le football, l'athlétisme, le volleyball et l'athlétisme. Maintenant, l'impact que je vois, c'est que les écoles, nous avons 3 lycées et un centre communautaire. Maintenant, ils sont capables, autonomes, de créer l'équipe qui appartiennent à les mêmes équipes. Et nous organisons les jeux d'amitié pour les faire rencontrer. Et ça se voit pratiquement que l'impact est très positif. Pour les encourager, parce que tout ça, l'argent vient de la principauté de Monaco, mais il faut aussi penser comment créer l'héritage de tout ça. Je me souviens, en septembre de l'année passée, chaque équipe qui a gagné, on a donné le port. Comme ça, ils commencent à autonomiser les activités eux-mêmes et commencer à dire une équipe gagnante, il a une propriété à gagner ensemble. Comme ça, en créant une chose commune, c'est la résolution de conflits.
Merci beaucoup Vénus d'avoir illustré toutes ces initiatives qui vraiment nous montrent cet engagement, ce fort engagement communautaire que vous avez pu initier, mais aussi ce partenariat entre la communauté et les institutions. Je vais revenir au témoignage de SOI Omewe au départ, qui a fait un appel pour que les travaux de ce forum puissent vraiment amener des réflexions et des initiatives. Et je pense qu'à travers nos deux premiers panélistes, on a eu des initiatives qui, j'espère, pourront être un départ de réflexions communes sur la transformation des systèmes éducatifs comme moteur de la paix. Nous poursuivons avec Kwani Kirkwani, spécialiste de programme à la section de l'éducation à la citoyenneté mondiale et pour la paix de l'Unesco. Et à travers son intervention, il partagera différents outils, initiatives et approches développées pour accompagner la transformation des systèmes éducatifs en levier de paix, de cohésion sociale et de citoyenneté mondiale. Et ma question pour vous, Kwani, c'est quels sont, à votre avis, aujourd'hui les outils et approches les plus pertinents pour transformer les systèmes éducatifs en moteurs de paix et de cohésion sociale? Merci, Kwani.
Thank you very much, Nisreen. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm just going to start by maybe putting a timer so I do not turn into a priest and speak and bore everybody to death. Number 2, I also just wanted to recognize the speakers that came before me and how difficult it is to come after them, particularly an Olympian. It's not an easy task. And so maybe my job would be a synthesis of what they have said and maybe just to try and pull that together. So first, I think I agreed with my sister who opened the session when she said that at the moment, education systems in Africa, but I would extend globally, are violent. They are not capable of contributing to realizing peace. Maybe I'll step back and say, as you can see with my first point, I'm going to speak as an African, but also as someone in UNESCO. So I will be changing those two hats accordingly. And so when I say something that is a little bit problematic, I'm speaking as an African. But if it is something that is nice, I'm speaking as UNESCO. Okay, excellent. Now, So first, education systems, the way they're organized currently, are violent and cannot facilitate peace. What I mean by that is many of the challenges that we face around the world, particularly in Africa, they could be both social, economic, and political challenges. We usually just say we face a lot of challenges, interconnected challenges, intractable challenges, but we really do not pause a little bit to ask, how is it that we have those challenges in the first place? My view, and I think it's not new, I think it's shared, is that we have a world that is structured in very extractivist, dispossessional manner, where one person has to be dispossessed for the other person to benefit. That is the first problem. And so this takes different expression, socially, politically, and economically. It also takes different levels within a country, between countries, and within the wider world. And it's very important that we pin that down, because this is the problem that also translates into education. Secondly, in such a world that is structured in a way that is very extractivist, very capitalistic, what do you say? You ask yourself, what is the role of education in a world like that? Unfortunately, education is also a social, economic, and political system. And so it takes the same expression. In a world that is extractivist, education will also be extractivist. It will be capitalistic. It will be, for those who have, will have a better education. For those who have not, will be in a classroom where they sit on stones and still following a teacher writing on the board with a chalk. Number 3, now, in Africa particularly, this takes even more particular sort of expression. In Africa until today, we still educate young Africans in ways that are not immediate to them. An example, where I went to school, I was almost educated as if I was to go and live in the UK. I was educated in English. I was taught a lot more about world history than the immediate sort of an environment in which I was going about my life. Until today, I'm also struggling to pick back my mother tongue. I was not educated in my mother tongue, so I'm trying to pick it up again. That is one way in which education is violent. Education is also violent. In Africa, how I was educated was as if there was no African person or country or region that has done anything significant. So I read about Einstein, I read about Newton, I read about Faraday and everybody else. And so in my head, it was very clear from a very young age that this is just for other people. It is not for people like me to be read and studied in classrooms. My hands were beaten so that I could learn to write like Shakespeare. Who was Shakespeare? I had no clue. Did I care about Shakespeare at all? Nothing, nada, absolutely. I didn't care about Shakespeare at all. That is the second way in which education is violent. The third way in which education is violent is for a continent like Africa that was dispossessed for centuries. There was no part in my education that allowed me to interact with that history critically. And so from it was raised this sort of sense that, okay, you know, this is a continent that is somehow inferior. It has not done anything significant. And much of what I am recovering now, I am recovering on my own afterwards, my own reading, my own exploration. None of it came from my education. That's the fourth way in which education is violent. And finally, education is violent in hierarchies that it reinforces. In Africa, just like everywhere else in the world, we are educating young learners to not change the world, but to fit into it. We're not educating them to be radical in a positive sense. I must qualify that. To imagine and to vision a totally different possibility for the world. We educate them to fit in. Are you going to be a banker and nothing else? Don't think outside that box. You're going to be a lawyer. Don't think about... That's a fifth way in which education is violent. Now that I've done stock taking of how education impedes peace, not enables it, what can we do? So my third point, and I have only 2 more to make, my third point is, I think we've been spending a lot of time in trying to fix education from the fringes. Oh, train teachers. Oh, develop this extra curriculum. Oh, teach people how to think critically. I mean, what is the point of critical thinking under a dictatorship? What will you do with critical thinking in a situation like that? And so on, okay? So we've been on the fringes, not the substance. We've left the substance. And so the first thing that we need to do is the substance, to really, really change education from the very core of it. I know many a times when we say education for peace, people think we mean education that is of quality. I don't think so. Yes, quality education is good, but it is also not enough for peace, because you have countries that have quality education but are fundamentally racist. You have some of the most educated individuals, and they are the most racist people you've ever met. So how do you explain that? So there is something about the core that we've been living for a long time that we need to return back to. And the reason to why quality is not enough, in my view, in a world that I just explained to you, where things need to be reimagined and transformed, you need a spirit of people that are willing to say, no, there is a totally possible way of doing things. Totally possible, totally different way of doing things, and we must pursue that. Of course, as a UNESCO person, what we've been trying to do is to convince member states, convince them, because it is very difficult to convince member states, to convince them that you need to reorganize your education system. Don't fix the little problems on the tangents. Go to the very core. Because it's in your own good as a country, because of the many good things that come out of an education system that is transformative, just, and radical. There are good things that come for that country. So it's in your best interest to form the core of it. Now, this requires forgetting for once critical thinking or little things that we do to say we're going to teach students how to think critically. The students are not the problem. It is the system in which they are raised that is the problem. It's not the student. Why are we putting the problems of individual students? Sometimes the problem is the politicians. Maybe we should educate politicians. Maybe we should train the politicians, not the students. But we put it on students. So we need to leave that for once and to say, how is the education system organized? Who is included? Who is excluded? Which knowledge is silenced? Which knowledge is enabled? Okay? Which people, the rich or the poor, have access and don't? Okay? It shouldn't be that if you have money and status that you have good education. No, it shouldn't be. It should just be all learners, wherever they are, we reorganize the education system to facilitate that. We also reorganize the systems, the systems of knowledge that undergirds education. The theories, as an African, I don't know how is it possible that we go about saying we are African, proud people, proud continent, when we allow our education system not to draw from our own knowledge systems and worldviews. How is that possible? You see? So we change also the knowledge systems and worldviews. Of course, I am not saying don't teach students about Shakespeare or Newton, but I'm saying teach them about Chinua Achebe, teach them about Ngugi wa Thiong'o, teach them about Queen Kadanke of the Kush civilization, teach them about all the incredible people in their immediate neighborhoods, And then from that deep-rootedness, you can now expand them to Shakespeare, to the Newtons, and to the Einsteins. Finally, we need to also change, if we change the knowledge systems, we need to change the bureaucracies that organize education. Change them in such a way that the institution itself allows learning for everybody, not just the young learners. And finally, to conclude, this is what we've been trying to do. So it's not that the resources are not there, or the knowledge is not there, or the tools are not there. I have tools here. They are there. If you go online, they are there. We just need a will. We need a will of people that are willing to say, okay, these education systems everywhere, but particularly in Africa, are violent, fundamentally violent, epistemologically violent, culturally violent, structurally violent, and they must be transformed. I'm not saying they must be fixed. No, we've been trying to fix them since independence. Where have we gone? They must be transformed from the very roots, fundamentally. And once that is done, we can now talk about, okay, what skills should we cultivate in the learners? What skills that allow for democratic, totally egalitarian way of going about organizing society? This question becomes important at the end, not at the beginning. I feel like we've been asking the question of skills and knowledge at the beginning, when the education organization is fundamentally unjust and immoral, in my view. I will conclude there. Sorry for the anger. It's, yeah, it comes out naturally. I was saying, the resources are here. If you want, the solutions are there. Just the will,
Merci.
Just the will.
Merci Kouani d'avoir partagé avec nous votre perspective, partant de votre expérience, sur vraiment la nécessité de transformer profondément les systèmes éducatifs, et notamment dans les pays africains. C'est vraiment aller au-delà des guides, comme vous l'avez dit, et penser réellement à réorganiser les systèmes éducatifs, à mettre en valeur l'héritage en fait, de la culture en Afrique. Sans plus tarder, nous avons notre dernier intervenant en ligne, Cheikh Mbo, qui va exposer une perspective nationale ancrée dans le terrain et le plaidoyer éducatif. Alors, Cheikh Mbo est directeur exécutif de la COSIDEP et aussi acteur majeur de la société civile éducative au Sénégal. Il est membre de la NCFA, le réseau africain de campagne pour l'éducation pour tous. Engagé depuis plusieurs années dans les réformes éducative et le plaidoyer pour une éducation inclusive, il s'inscrit dans les dynamiques nationales et régionales de transformation des systèmes éducatifs. À travers son intervention, il abordera la thématique éducation, facteurs de paix et de non-violence dans le cadre de la mobilisation citoyenne en période électorale au Sénégal. Est-ce qu'on peut, s'il vous plaît, bien sûr, on va attendre quelques instants qu'on puisse avoir Cheikh Mbo en ligne avec nous.
Bonjour Nesrine, j'espère que vous m'entendez bien.
Est-ce que vous nous entendez?
Oui, je vous entends parfaitement bien.
Super. Bonjour Cheikh. Et ma question pour vous est, d'après votre expérience, quels leviers issus de l'éducation et de la mobilisation citoyenne ont été les plus efficaces pour prévenir les violences et renforcer la non-violence en période électorale au Sénégal? Merci, cher.
Merci beaucoup, Nisrine. Je vous transmets le bonjour de Dakar à toute la salle et à tous ceux qui nous suivent. Je m'appelle Cheikh Mbo, directeur exécutif de la COSIDEP, la Coalition Éducation du Sénégal. Mais je m'exprime au nom des coalitions africaines regroupées autour de ANCEFA. Vous l'avez rappelé, il m'a été demandé de réfléchir sur l'éducation en tant que facteur de paix et de non-violence, en l'illustrant par un des exemples de mobilisation citoyenne en période électorale au Sénégal. Vous le savez, l'histoire politique du Sénégal et certainement de beaucoup d'autres pays africains permet de noter que les élections sont souvent source de désaccords, de heurts, de violences, de perturbations. Et cette situation amplifie les conflits qui se règle le plus souvent par l'agitation politique, qui affecte tous les secteurs, et le système éducatif n'y échappe pas. Nos établissements scolaires, notamment les lycées qui enregistrent des enfants qui sont devenus des électeurs, 3/4 de ces enfants sont devenus électeurs. Ces lycées enregistrent donc une forte présence de jeunes, et ces jeunes sont devenus à la fois cibles et acteurs. Cibles des acteurs politiques, mais acteurs parce que très dynamiques dans les réseaux sociaux. Ce qui fait évidemment que ces violences surviennent. Lorsque ces violences surviennent, les jeunes constituent les principales victimes de ces violences, et ces jeunes qui sont scolarisés. C'est une situation donc qui nécessite de renforcer leur protection, mais de repositionner l'éducation comme levier de solution, l'éducation comme facteur de paix. Cela pour nous est un élément essentiel dans ces situations d'urgence, de crise et de violence. Et on voudrait justement nous appuyer sur une situation récente entre 2020 et 2024 au Sénégal, qui étaient des années particulièrement chargées en matière de tensions sociopolitiques. Il y avait des adversités partisanes qui ont dépassé leur forme verbale pour se transposer dans la sphère publique sous forme de manifestations violentes venant saccager nos écoles, perturber les apprentissages, emprisonner des enfants et même leurs enseignants. Ces années ont été donc particulièrement marquées par cette série de violences exercées contre le cadre scolaire et un ensemble de symboles qui jadis représentaient des références. Ces violences, nous le savons, ne sont pas seulement propres au milieu scolaire, mais ces violences semblent aussi être la résultante d'un mal qui gangrène la société dans son ensemble. La paix et le vivre ensemble continuent d'être menacés par l'intolérance, les violences des droits de l'homme. L'école, qui constitue un lieu de construction de valeurs citoyennes, civiques et démocratiques, est interpellée dans l'élaboration de réponses adéquates face aux enjeux de paix et de non-violence. Et tout cela nous a permis, au niveau de la COSIDEP, de dire que ces périodes d'élection devraient nous voir mobilisés autour des enfants pour justement construire des solutions que nous pensons être plus durables. Nous l'avons fait en référence aux ODD 4 et 16 et nous sommes entrés par quelques projets. L'un est dénommé Lycée modèle de la citoyenneté et du civisme. Lycée modèle de la citoyenneté et du civisme, qui nous a permis de mobiliser des milliers d'élèves autour de débats sur l'éducation à la non-violence, d'amener les jeunes à prendre des engagements pour la citoyenneté, la paix et le civisme à l'école, de produire divers outils et supports en faveur de l'adoption de comportements civiques et citoyens. Un deuxième projet, éducation civique et électorale, a permis aussi de réaliser une étude sur le phénomène de la violence vécue par l'école, mais aussi de mettre en place des observatoires locaux des élections, mais sous le prisme de l'éducation. Comment les acteurs de l'éducation peuvent observer justement les violences qui impactent le système éducatif. Un troisième projet, c'est la protection des enfants et la continuité des apprentissages en situation d'urgence. Ce projet a permis de mettre en place un dispositif de réponse aux besoins psychologiques, physiques, émotionnels dus à l'exposition à la violence des enfants, mais aussi engager les familles et les communautés sur l'importance de renforcer la surveillance et la sécurité de leurs enfants. Nous avons aussi eu comme objectif de vulgariser l'appel des enfants à renforcer leur protection en situation de violence, un appel qui a été dédié aux adultes et aux hommes politiques. Pour conclure, nous rappelons évidemment que l'école est certes un milieu de socialisation, mais aussi une ramification de la société. Cette école vit des crises parce qu'elle est partie intégrante d'une société en crise. L'école est un maillon qui doit contribuer à la construction de citoyens responsables. Et l'école doit davantage se positionner en laboratoire de réponses durables à travers le renforcement dès le plus jeune âge de l'éducation à la paix et à la non-violence. Je vous remercie.
Merci Mbo d'avoir partagé cette initiative qui souligne encore une fois le rôle de la formation, notamment sur les valeurs citoyennes et le dialogue dans la promotion de la culture de la paix. Je vais conclure ce panel d'abord en remerciant l'ensemble des panélistes et intervenants pour la richesse de leurs interventions et d'avoir partagé toutes ces initiatives. Et ce panel montre que la transformation des systèmes éducatifs en moteur de paix repose sur une articulation forte entre terrain, engagement citoyen, innovation sociale et cadres internationaux. Merci à tous et je vous invite au prochain panel qui va parler du rôle des jeunes comme co-architectes de la culture de la paix. Restez avec nous, ne partez pas. Merci à tous.
A round of applause, please, to Nazreen and everyone. Please, thank you. Wonderful job, Nazreen. Thank you so much. Colleagues, as we move to our last session for the day, and the session which is very close to my heart, and that is the session on the young people, on the youth, as I've been re-emphasizing. So, session 3 will speak about youth as co-architects of peace and stability, and I do agree that will be very pertinent for Africa and the continent we're talking about. Our moderator is Miss Melissa Feroz. Melissa, thank you for coming. And Melissa is with New Humanity Communications Coordinator and Strategic Advisor. Melissa, over to you. Guys.
Thank you so much. I think it's interesting taking the floor at this very moment because we have traveled through different topics today. And starting from water and then going through education has like raised the intention of hearing from youth regarding what they have to say right now. And I don't want to not exceed expectations, but not even like put in distress to my speakers because they are very special. We prepared this session with heart, with relationships that we just created because we didn't know each other, but we knew that at some point we were going to work on something together. And then a relationship was born. And I want to read the room. How tired are we right now? Do we feel a little bit of tension? Bit. So let's just stand up for just 1 second. I will invite you to do something very unorthodox. Okay. So there's something I've learned from the African culture, and also something I've learned from the culture of my husband, which is Lebanese. And it is a really good hear me out is needed sometimes. And right now, I'm just going to invite you to do a hear me out, but the African way, just to set up the intention for this session, because it's the last one of a very long day, so we really need a little bit of energy, okay? So it goes like this. Did I do it? Was it good, or should I do it like differently? How is it? 1, 2, together. That's how it is. Thank you so much. Distress, and let's start. Okay. So, as we were saying, storytelling is something important. And from the previous panel, I really feel how important it is to be a good storyteller, to tell good stories. And that's what is going to happen now. We're going to tell stories from grassroots level, from personal experiences, and also taking courage to embrace what happened in the previous panels. I think that passing by, that we have received the floor from the education panel was amazing. I was an athlete myself, so I do understand what Mr. Benicio told us, because it's really important to start from their own experience and creating something that it has meaning for our communities. And also from what Vicky said, I don't remember right now the exact words, but she said, we have to start from the knowledge that our communities have in order to create a real culture of peace. And at the same time, Kwani, say something also that is very near to our hearts. And we should start from the cause that is making us experiencing the system in a hurtful way, so we can really be peace builders, co-architects of peace, co-architects of bringing some stability to the system. And we do that together, not only as youth, but as different generations working together. And that's the main thing that I carry from my own NGO. So I'm going to give the floor right now to someone I met for the first time in person in this forum, but we have been working together for different years. And her name is Isabella. And I've learned from her that it is very important to be always eager to take a step forward. So I do believe that for young people, we really like to speak for ourselves. So I'm going just to serve my amazing pool of speakers by giving them the floor and let them express how they want to be presented to you in their own words. So Isabella, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isabella. I'm supporting the youth working group of the NGO Unesco Liaison Committee, but I'm also part of the Liaison Committee supporting their communications efforts. And also, of course, like each one of you, I'm part also of an NGO in official partnership with Unesco, which is called the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And I'm really happy to be here today, Melissa. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for everyone taking the time to be here and listen what these amazing people have been doing in their countries, regions, and communities. So I don't know if you have my presentation, but in any case, I can already kickstart. Okay, great. So I'll be giving a brief overview what the youth working group has been doing and what we are exactly. So in the first, if you can go to the first slide. Well, so to kickstart the presentation, what is the youth working group? What we are exactly? So we are a group of around 80 to 100 youth participants from all NGOs in official partnership with UNESCO. So the NGOs officially appoint those youth to be their representatives in the working group. And the way that we work is that we are an informal group that is supporting the committee whenever we can. So our objective is to bring together young people aged 18 to 35, which are engaged in those NGOs to contribute to the liaison committee's work, network, and identify new partnerships, participating in consultations and forums, and ensuring that youth perspectives are meaningfully reflected in policy discussions with UNESCO, Secretariat, member states, and partner NGOs. And I would like to also continue to say what we have been doing the past year, because I believe our activities have been very rich, and it's great to meet everyone like Melissa, I just met in person, but we have been working in the past year. So if you can go to the next slide, you see like, we have been doing many things. If I may start, on October 25, I was able to participate at the UNESCO Youth Forum, representing the youth working group, and also how the NGOs are engaging their young people in the field. So the Youth Forum was focused on climate change and how that impacts the young people worldwide. And I was able to support the recommendations paper and to include more about the NGOs in that paper, and also how they are important to also engage young people within their work, but also within their communities, regions, and countries. We are also able to be part of the general conference in the NGO space, where I was able to present several amazing initiatives of young people from our working group, what they are actually doing around all the 5 thematics of the UNESCO work. So, and then this year we come to the 18th International Forum on Greening Education Partnership, which we had a youth representative on the steering committee, and we are able to actually have more young people participating in panels to share their knowledge, but also to include more than on meaningful conversation. And one of the key aspects of this forum is that we also prepare a position paper on how youth can be meaningfully involved in the Greening Education Partnership of UNESCO, which our colleague will be speaking more about it in a video that he prepared. And now in May, we are here in this forum, and Melissa is also a youth representative in the steering committee and able to organize this amazing panel, so we can also hear more about what other young people are doing on the aspects of the cultural peace in Africa. And going forward, we'll have the International Conference of NGOs in December, and we are already thinking about how can youth engage more actively in this conference. On the next slide, we'll have our colleague presenting more about this recommendation paper and what we have been doing to support the knowledge part of the youth working group and what we have been working on together. If you could pass the slide, please. I think there's a video, if you could go back. Yes.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues. My name is Gabriele Druetta. I work at the Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie, and I'm a member of the Youth Working Group of the NGO UNESCO Liaison Committee. I was a member of the steering committee for the previous forum on the Greening Education Partnership, where I moderated the panel on Pillar 2 alongside the director of IUF, Prof. Slim Kalbous. It is a great honor to present today the first collective contribution of the Youth Working Group of the NGO UNESCO Liaison Committee, a collective effort reflecting the voices and commitments of young people engaged in the Greening Education Partnership. This paper proposes 5 concrete recommendations to address one central question: how can youth be meaningfully involved in the Greening Education Partnership? Les 3 premières recommandations établissent des conditions essentielles à une participation significative des jeunes au sein du partenariat pour une éducation verte. Les 2 dernières proposent des actions concrètes pour renforcer leur inclusion effective. La première appelle à reconnaître l'éducation climat et à l'environnement comme un droit universel. La deuxième encourage des approches innovantes et interdisciplinaires de l'éducation environnementale. La troisième souligne l'importance de l'empathie et de l'éducation émotionnelle pour répondre à l'éco-anxiété. La quatrième recommande la mise en place de mécanismes inclusifs, structurés et continus afin de réduire les inégalités d'accès auxquelles de nombreux jeunes restent confrontés. Enfin, la 5e propose d'institutionnaliser un groupe de travail jeunesse au sein du partenariat pour une éducation verte, avec un mandat formel, des ressources adaptées, un soutien institutionnel durable et en incluant les voix les plus vulnérables. À travers ce groupe, les jeunes doivent être reconnus comme des acteurs légitimes et permanents de la gouvernance et du développement du partenariat. Meaningful youth participation is not a symbolic gesture, it is a governance imperative. Involving young people strengthens the legitimacy of collective action, recognizes our expertise, addresses structural power imbalances, and builds the trust necessary for long-term collaboration. Following the model of the NGO UNESCO Liaison Committee Youth Working Group, we call on UNESCO and all members of the Greening Education Partnership to institutionalize this participation formally, inclusively, and sustainably. As young people, we stand ready to contribute not as observers, but as co-creators of the solution our generations and future generations deserve. The Youth Working Group of the NGO UNESCO Liaison Committee remains fully committed and ready to support this shared endeavor. Thank you.
So I would really like to thank Gabriel, who couldn't be with us, so that's why he sent the video, because he was the one who pushed for this important paper to come, and we had the participation support for many of the youth working group members, be it via writing the paper or sending case studies, because each one of those recommendations he shared is illustrated by a case study. So the recommendations at the end, it's about things that are already happening on a country level, on a local level, and it's just out there, and that's how we should be thinking about the youth. They are already acting. We just need to be more meaningfully involved since the beginning on these actions, be it in education or any thematics or cross-cutting thematics. So, and to finalize my presentation, if you could go to the next slide, and also on the topic of today's session on youth being co-creators, co-architects of peace and stability, and also connecting to the past panel on education. Youth empowerment and meaningful participation starts with good quality education, meaningful education, and that's how one of my also organizations working on the SDG Academy. We provide free educational resource from the world's leading experts on sustainable development on all the 17 SDGs. And we have been doing that for the past 10 years, and acquiring and young people need knowledge to know how to act. And that's how it starts everything, and that's how I start the youth meaningful participation. So thank you so much for invitation to be here, and I'm really looking forward to see how this panel will look like.
Thank you. You don't know what just happened here. Isabella, as she said, she was representing the youth working group at the last youth forum of UNESCO. And that's very meaningful because before, we couldn't. Youth, from the representation of NGOs, we were not invited. And in 2023, we were invited for the first time. And what happened? At that point, the young people who were participating on this working group were called. Okay, guys, we really want you to participate. Who is willing to do it? Some people raised their hands. At some point, Melissa, could you do it? And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this on behalf of all of us. And there was this special phrase, Melissa, you can go there because you're not going as yourself or as your NGO. You're going to take the voice of all of us. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm not doing this alone. And Isabella just did that. And then Gabriele, in the last forum, did the same thing. So can you imagine what's going to happen in 15 years, let's say, when we're going to pass the, what's the word? The torch, la stafetta in italiano, el relievo en español, to the next runner, no? We do that. So it's going to be powerful, and I'm very, very grateful that you're here telling us this story. Thank you, Isa. Okay, so there is a part, because, you know, we like to talk about policy recommendations, how we can change the world, how we are taking the floor, how we can contribute. And then another question is, okay, so how do we bring to life these things that we are doing together? And when we were thinking about this session, we thought, okay, so it's like we are architects. It's like we are building something, and we need those architects to come here. So I would like to call 3 of those architects. One of them is online, is a video message, but they are so powerful that I really want us to greet them with a really big clap. And I'm going to call here ONG and Victoria, because we have something special prepared for you. Are you nervous? Okay, they're a little bit nervous, but you know, they are willing to listen to your stories, to the things that you're doing, which are amazing. I know it for sure. So just keep that energy with you. I want to give the floor to someone. We have been working amazingly, and we couldn't find a single language to work together, but we had to use DeepL. And then at some point in a meeting, I had to ask ONG, can you please translate this for her? And we built an amazing relationship. So I want to introduce you to Marguerite. She's a medical doctor. She's a journalist. She strives for gender balance and equality. And she has something amazing on her work, because she works at the intersection of health and media. And her powerful stories are something that I can only imagine that are thriving in her country because of the power of those people. And they are from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I will give the floor to Marguerite. She sent us a video message, and it's very deeply important for me that you can take everything that she's saying to you.
Mesdames et messieurs, chers invités, chers jeunes leaders, bonjour. C'est pour moi un immense honneur de prendre la parole dans ce cadre consacré à l'avenir de l'Afrique, mais aussi de la jeunesse du monde entier. Comme vous le savez tous, il m'a été demandé de parler de l'utilisation du média et de la santé publique pour la promotion du changement social et de la protection des communautés vulnérables. Pour ma petite présentation, je suis Marguerite Bossita, originaire de la RDC, médecin de formation académique et professionnelle. Je suis journaliste, experte en genre. Je suis spécialisée dans la lutte contre les violences basées sur le genre. Alors, comment je peux arriver à mettre 2 métiers qui semblent opposés, le journalisme et la médecine, pour le changement de ma communauté? Aujourd'hui, je n'aimerais pas vous parler comme une conférencière seulement, mais je vous parlerai de moi, de mon expérience. Tout a commencé lorsque j'étais en dernière année de médecine. J'étais exposée où je recevais plusieurs cas de femmes qui ont subi des abus sexuels, des petites filles de mineurs qui ont subi de viols et les familles proposaient de négociations à l'amiable parce que ces familles n'avaient pas de moyens pour dénoncer, ils avaient peur du bourreau. J'ai ramené la situation auprès de mon supérieur. Sa phrase ou sa réponse a été pour moi une grande motivation. Il m'a dit, je suis jeune, je dois apprendre à me taire et faire ce qui me revient de devoir. Je dis non. Après mes études, j'ai dit, je dois aller faire le journalisme parce que j'avais compris qu'à travers le média, je peux beaucoup sensibiliser plusieurs personnes et que ma voix serait attendue à travers toute la République et à travers l'Afrique. J'ai fait porter le fardeau de ces femmes violées, des femmes qui ont subi les abus sexuels. Aujourd'hui, pour votre information, la violence basée sur le genre est devenue un réel problème de santé publique en RDC. Et ce qui m'a motivée, je commençais à faire des émissions à la chaîne nationale où je parlais de violences basées sur les genres, je parlais de viol et je créais aussi ma propre émission qui parlait de violences basées sur les genres. À travers cette émission, je donnais la voix à ces femmes qui sont restées longtemps dans le silence, à parler de leur situation, à être cette lumière à d'autres personnes et à d'autres femmes qui continuaient à subir ces violences dans le silence. À travers les médias, beaucoup de femmes sont venues nous parler de leur situation, se sont ouvertes à nous et elles ont dit ce qui leur portait à cœur. Et à travers les médias, je peux aussi atteindre des partenaires qui ont pu aider ces femmes à une prise en charge médicale, psychologique et juridique. Aujourd'hui, je vous parle, je suis non seulement médecin, que j'aide ces femmes à être rétablies de leurs droits et à obtenir leur justice, mais aussi non seulement aussi un accompagnement médical, mais ces femmes sont sorties du silence et sont devenues la voix pour plusieurs. Le média nous a permis de sensibiliser et de prévenir. C'est ça ma petite expérience et je tenais à dire à un jeune que nous ne sommes pas l'avenir, nous sommes le présent. Nous devons apporter notre pierre, nous sommes le co-architecte. Nous devons apporter notre pierre pour que nous puissions obtenir cette nation, ce monde-là que nous avons toujours voulu. Nous ne sommes pas seulement les bénéficiaires, nous sommes aussi les personnes qui doivent parler, porter la voix des autres plus haut. Je vous remercie. J'aurais voulu être là présente pour tenir cette conférence, mais la situation n'a pas permis. Je tenais à remercier les organisateurs pour cette marque de confiance, ainsi qu'à toutes et à toutes et à tous pour cette marque de confiance. Je vous remercie. Je vous dis à très bientôt. Merci.
Isn't she amazing, really? Margot, tu es mon lumière. Je te remercie. So, back to us here on the stage. ONG, you are an advocate for peace, youth, security. You are a member. No, this story is fantastic. I met ONG when we were working with Ada Magnon that you saw in the previous panel. You saw a video of her. And we were working together. And at some point, she said, you know, ONG is going to be there. Why don't you send him a message? And I did send him a message inviting him for the panel because he's representing the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And I think that his experience, personal experience, but also the organization he's representing and the country he's representing within that organization is very powerful as well. So, ONG, I have a question for you. What is the biggest structural barrier that you think young peace builders face today? And how are you mobilizing those youth to be the next generation that will dismantle it?
Okay. First of all, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's an honor to exchange on these topics, which is very important. From my experience as a young peace builder in Cameroon, I realized that the biggest structural barrier for youth peace builder today isn't the lack of willingness to engage, but it's the trust, the opportunity, and the lack of support to actually put their word out there. Too many often youths are invited into conversations mainly as a way of symbol and mainly as beneficiaries, whereas they want to give their words into the shaping of dynamisms of peace. Today, youths are perhaps the first one to indicate signs of political frustration, social division, and tensions. And this started back in 2019 when I first participated to peace initiatives and youth forums organized by Young Wilf, by Wilf and the Zen Network. And what struck me was that youths are willing to contribute positively to their communities, but they lack the mentorship, they lack the spaces, and they lack clear pathways to engagement. I try to contribute by organizing community sessions on peace and elections, with the recent one being last year for the elections of our president back then in 2025, and as well as local engagement activities with Young Wilf and Youth for Peace members, such as campaigns on promotion of peace and the stopping of messages of hate speech on the internet. And today I believe we still have a lot to do, and this is why I personally engage as well by creating a startup today which, beyond the educational aspect, empowers youth into becoming autonomous and real contributors in their own life and for the world. So I also believe that peace awareness, peace building is good, but I believe empowerment is what we are still lacking and what we have to head to. And this is why we are here today. This is why we keep doing this. This is why we keep moving together, because youths are the real co-creators of peace in our world today. And thank you very much again for this time.
Thank you, Ange. Thank you. And I wanted to bring some objects to the floor, but I forgot at last minute. But if I was to introduce Victoria, I will do it with a really big camera of those that we see when they are making a film. No? Why, you will say? Because Victoria here is a filmmaker, and she's right now with our group of youth representing NGOs in partnership with Unesco, representing the World Union of Catholic Teachers. And what amazed me about her work is that she's a real storyteller. I'm just miming a storyteller. But she tries to celebrate cultural heritage and at the same time bringing to the discussion climate change, but with a different perspective, with a creative perspective. And digital storytelling is not easy. So I want to ask about your personal experience. How can cinema turn those environmental stress or messages that we have right now into shared stories of cooperation and peace? If they can.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Unesco organizers, for this opportunity to share my own perspective. When I hear environmental stress, I just don't think of a scientific definition. When I hear environmental stress, I think of fear when I see the news about the earthquake, when I see the news about the floods, and then I imagine and ask myself, what if it was me? I think of sadness that comes when environmental changes in a ways we cannot control. In my own community, when the rain doesn't come, simply the crops which needs water to flourish doesn't simply fail. And as a result, price rises and life becomes difficult. I've seen here in France too, when there is heavy snow, transportation gets disrupted. So environmental stress is not only about the danger, it's about how our small ways of life become unstable. And this is where the cinema becomes powerful, because cinema reaches way faster than any other instrument. I know you people will be questioning yourself because, of course, when something happens, there is news. Excuse me. What I mean when faster, it means people understand it and they feel it to their heart. Because human learn through emotions. I want to ask you questions, but I don't want answers. How many of you cried after you have watched films? Like, you have cried, like, some of them were being aggressive, some of them like want to enter the TV and fight and so forth.
I have.
Even for myself, I can't count how many times I've cried when I watched these war films, because I can just hear that there is war, there is this, but when I see, I feel it visually and emotionally. I can give an example of a real life. There is this film which is called The Impossible. Was talk about the 2004 tsunami. When this film got released, the survivors said, finally people can understand and feel our trauma. Even humanitarian groups renewed their attention. NGOs, school started to use that film to teach people disaster preparedness. That's why I use cinema for social change and social impact. Thank you.
Thank you. You understand why I asked them to be the main architects on the stage by now. Their stories have something. Is that they start from a feeling. Also the ones from Margarita. So I want to invite also a pass on a different phase of this session, where we go to grassroots levels, but I wanted you to imagine this. Have you ever been in a session where people are invited to take the floor, they take the floor, and then the floor is given, and then what happens next? And then that floor that was given to whom? And that person is speaking on behalf of whom? Not the organization, not the state, but whom? Who are the people? Who are the people they are giving voice in that moment they are taking the stage? No, they are taking the floor, they are taking some space for raise their words, their voices. We wanted to create a sort of grassroots level engagement, but I will need to invite those other amazing architects of peace and stability to the main stage.
But I want you to observe from where within the room they are coming by. Okay, so I will say their names. They will stand up, and then they'll come here, and you'll see from where they are coming. Okay, imagine a story, and then we'll see. So I would like to invite Elisa from Make Mothers Matter NGO. I want to invite Juan Camilo from New Humanity NGO. I want to invite Rebecca from Association Montessori International. And I want to invite Laura from Rotary. Can you hear? They are doing our, we are here, okay? So I'm so happy to have you here. So happy, really. I cannot contain my happiness. And there's what's going to happen now. We're going to give them the floor. They will have the very difficult task to do like a pitch elevator, but a little bit longer, in order to introduce an initiative. Then we will see from their communities who are the voices, who are the faces, who are the communities behind it. And then I will leave it to the time if we'll manage to do another surprise. So I will give the floor to Elisa. Are you ready? So, Elisa, please introduce us. What are you bringing on girls' education?
Sports, actually, Melissa. And yeah, and education for peace. So, bonjour à tous. Je vais parler en français parce que la vidéo ensuite est en français, donc c'est pour. Donc, bonjour, je m'appelle Elisa. Je suis représentante jeunesse de Make Mothers Matter à l'Unesco. Make Mothers Matter, qui est une ONG qui porte la voix des mères en faisant des actions de plaidoyer, de mobilisation de terrain sur des actions comme la santé, la paix, l'économie et également l'éducation comme pilier transversal. Et elle s'appuie sur un réseau de 55 organisations membres réparties à travers le monde. Et aujourd'hui, j'aimerais vous présenter l'initiative d'une de nos membres, une association belgo-congolaise qui s'appelle En avant les enfants, qui travaille à Goma, en République démocratique du Congo, une autre initiative de République démocratique du Congo, depuis plus de 25 ans. Et Goma, qui a été une ville qui, pendant des décennies, a connu la guerre civile, conflits, vagues de réfugiés. Voilà, donc les enfants, les jeunes, les femmes ont porté vraiment le poids de l'instabilité. Donc, l'initiative d'En avant les enfants, qui s'appelle Promo Jeunes Basket, à travers le basket, permet aux jeunes, 1500 jeunes par an, filles et garçons de 3 à 25 ans, de développer des compétences pour construire leur avenir. Particulièrement, il y a 40 jeunes athlètes jusqu'à maintenant qui ont pu aller continuer leur développement de basket aux États-Unis, au Canada, en Europe, bref. Puis, peut-être encore plus notable, c'est le fait que ces jeunes vont ensuite, chaque année, participer aux Jeux de l'amitié des Grands Lacs, qui est des jeux entre jeunes de République démocratique du Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, pour justement, en fait, autour de la paix, jouer au basket, tisser des liens d'amitié. Et ça m'a paru particulièrement marquant. Donc regardons cela en vidéo.
Parce que les mères sont la source de notre vie, nous ne devrions pas croiser les doigts lorsqu'ils traversent une situation inhumaine. à Goma, à l'est de la République.
We had plan A, plan B, plan C, so this is the plan B.
L'association a beaucoup de projets, donc ça, ce n'est pas la bonne vidéo. C'est celle d'après, Promo Jeune Basket.
Was it downloaded?
Ah.
It's en avant les enfants. I'm so sorry, guys. Don't worry. Ellie, if you want, we can pass by the floor and then we'll come back to your video. Okay. Okay. Yes, I will give the name to you. So that will be my depth for today. Juan Camilo, you are going to talk about a very special project that engages different countries in Africa. Tell us more about it.
Yes, so thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I am really excited to show you our experience as an organization. So yes, my name is Juan Camilo. I am also from Colombia. So today I'm representing New Humanity International. And in the frame of this event, I would like to show you our experience on the field through 2 projects. The first one is called Afresh. And it was an European project concluded in 2025 and after 3 years of work. And it focused, the idea was to exchange experience between people, young people from Africa and from Europe to improve the leadership and soft skills, but also the transnational cooperation between the organization in both continents. Today, the project continues to make an impact in the people who was involved. It means 1,250 young people and more than 100 youth workers. The second project has recognition and support from Unesco and is Together for New Africa. Together for New Africa was born by African students during their academic experience in the Istituto Universitario Sofia in Italy. And they launched leadership programs to train the African young students to face the challenge in Africa. And the idea was, in the beginning, involve young people, institutions, and African networks. And in the beginning, it was with 7 countries, and it was really, really amazing. We will see in the video, but I would like to remark that the second step in 2022, it was with more than 14 countries, and now we can say that the impact is for 140 young people and 40 youth workers today. They are working in a training program on leadership and civil engagement. So let me show you the video. Obviously, if you want to know more about our projects, you can to see the websites in our or keep the contact with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Camilo. Thank you.
Je suis passionnée par le développement des femmes et des jeunes. Je travaille au renforcement de leurs capacités sur les questions de leadership, d'autonomisation et de soft skills.
After earning my bachelor degree in software development, I chose the path of entrepreneurship, a journey that as a young person can be very challenging, but never impossible. This experience expanded my horizon and knowledge, connecting with peers across Africa and Europe with different background and knowledge.
Mon engagement est né de mon histoire, car enfant, j'ai vu dans ma communauté le manque de conscience autour de la scolarisation des filles. J'ai été aussi témoin de beaucoup d'injustices, beaucoup d'inégalités, notamment les mutilations génitales féminines et les violences basées sur le genre. Et j'ai décidé de ne pas rester spectatrice. Aujourd'hui, je m'engage à contribuer à l'amélioration des conditions des femmes au Bénin, en Afrique et au-delà, car ce combat est commun. Pour bâtir une Afrique nouvelle, chaque voix compte, surtout celle des filles et des femmes.
Leadership today is about being at the service of all humanity, working with others and making sure that everyone gets the chance to live out, experience and develop his or her own talents at the service of our common humanity.
Through exploring leadership rooted in African values like Ubuntu, I have reshaped my understanding of what it means to lead. It has inspired me to be a change maker in my everyday life and to see diversity not as a threat or competition, but as a powerful opportunity.
Thank you. I will do something that is difficult to do, which is announce interesting news. So I want us to say thank you to our amazing interpreters that are here. Acknowledge them, please, because in a few minutes, their moment of being with us will come to an end. But that won't stop us. We will give the floor to all of our co-architects. And then if something, by any case, won't be translated, just let's listen and something will remain, okay, if you don't understand either the English or the French. But I really wanted to thank you guys for your work. And I want to propose something. Let's hear first from our co-architects, and then we will play in the row, Make Mothers Matters video, Amy's video, and Rotary's. Is that okay with you? Okay, so I'm going to give the floor to Rebecca. Rebecca, I was very amazed also for your dedication within the confinements of your NGO, but not only, also your personal story. So I want you to take the floor and do this flash talk and introduce us to your initiative.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Murphy, and I am Association Montessori International's Youth Representative to Unesco. It's an honor to be here with you today and speaking on behalf of our Kenyan colleagues at AMI, who unfortunately are not here with me today. Nearly 100 years ago, Dr. Maria Montessori developed an educational approach to support children who had survived armed conflict, disaster, and severe neglect. Today, I'd like to share just one example of how AMI continues this legacy in partnership with Kenyan youth, communities, and local authorities. This example has led to the re-knitting of the social fabric torn apart by the Kenyan 2007 to 2008 election-related violence, and over time, it led to an increasingly sustainable social cohesion. It is called the Corner of Hope School. It's located in the New Canaan refugee camp in the Rift Valley area of Nakuru. After experiencing unprecedented violence and subsequent displacement from their homes, children faced many structural barriers, one of them including a lack of access to education. AMI collaborated with the New Canaan community to build a Montessori school for ages 2 to 12. Members of the community followed Montessori teacher training, with the community taking complete ownership of all aspects of the project, from buildings to the teaching and to the making of all the materials. In the last 16 years, we've seen Corner of Hope facilitate vast social transformation, and much more that I'm unable to say here on this stage today within the time. But Corner of Hope has inspired the region with similar schools set up in remote communities, and the Kenyan government has recognized the AMI Montessori diplomas the teachers have continued to receive. Corner of Hope itself continues to expand beyond New Canaan. Recently, all Kenyan architectural universities participated in an architectural competition to design the newest building of Corner of Hope for around 600 children from ages 0 to 18. The winning design was inspired by the Maasai culture with input provided by community members. The 12 to 18 age group will be involved in designing their own working space as equal stakeholders. This is a beautiful example of civic engagement and youth-led innovation that will be a cultural asset shared by the community, one that was designed by today's youth for the youth of tomorrow and generations to come. I'm happy to share the video from our team in Kenya so you can see the changes the New Canaan community has made for their children, championed by the youth for the future youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Before the video, then I will give the floor to Laura. Laura, I was also amazed by the work you've shared for peace building, but I will leave you the floor to explain to us.
Thank you. Bonjour à tous, Laura Sass, je suis représentante jeunesse du Rotary International à l'Unesco. Pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas le Rotary, on est une organisation internationale où on agit sur plusieurs types d'actions, donc la paix notamment, mais également l'environnement, la santé de la mère et de l'enfant, l'alphabétisation et d'autres. Pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas le Rotary, pour ceux qui connaissent le Rotary, vous avez sûrement l'image d'un club d'hommes blancs d'un âge plus ou moins avancé ou financièrement aisé. Alors aujourd'hui, je voudrais vous présenter une autre réalité. Une réalité qui est jeune, qui est diverse, qui est engagée et surtout qui est africaine. Parce qu'en Afrique, le Rotary, c'est plus de 17 000 membres âgés de moins de 35 ans dans 40 pays différents. Et ils agissent au quotidien pour améliorer la qualité de vie dans leur propre communauté. Alors, pour vous donner des exemples, c'est l'AMEC qui est au Kenya, qui va piloter des projets de dépollution des rivières et d'éducation verte dans le cadre d'un partenariat avec l'UNEP. C'est Becky au Bénin qui parcourt les collèges pour transmettre des compétences génératrices de revenus, comme l'artisanat à partir de matériaux recyclés, afin de aider les jeunes dans un contexte où le chômage est élevé. Et puis c'est aussi chaque année une vingtaine d'étudiants formés au Centre du Rotary pour la paix en Ouganda qui deviennent de futurs acteurs de la médiation et de la prévention des conflits. Le Rotary en Afrique, c'est aussi un réseau capable de connecter des idées, des talents et les bons partenariats à l'échelle d'un continent. Et parfois cet engagement mène à des parcours extraordinaires. Comme celui de Olyenka Babaloa, qui est rentré au Rotary lorsqu'il était étudiant au Nigeria et qui maintenant sera en tout cas au 1er juillet président du Rotary International pour l'année 2026-2027. Alors aujourd'hui, mon message il est assez simple. Si nous voulons relever les défis mondiaux comme le climat, l'éducation ou la paix, nous devons faire confiance à la jeunesse qui est engagée. Et le Rotary, ce n'est pas seulement une organisation, c'est une plateforme d'action où nous avons besoin davantage de partenaires, davantage de jeunes, parce que les solutions globales naissent toujours d'actions locales et parce qu'aucun changement durable ne se construit sans engagement collectif. Merci à tous.
Merci, Laura. And I'm very amazed also, guys, for finally hearing from your flash talks. This is very important for this moment. And I want to introduce the last co-architect. His name is Arsène, and he's speaking from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I cannot with that name. Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's going to speak also about peace, but in his own way. So we're going to hear from him in a video message.
Je m'appelle Arsène Babingwa. Je vis à Bukavu dans l'est de la République démocratique du Congo, qui depuis plus de 3 décennies est marquée par des conflits armés récurrents, des déplacements massifs des populations et des violences qui ont bouleversé la vie des communautés. J'ai connu ATD Carmonde quand j'avais 10 ans par sa branche en face d'Apori qui fait rencontrer les enfants de tout milieu, permettant à des enfants en situation de pauvreté de partager des moments de joie avec des enfants plus favorisés. À Dil, je suis devenu animateur d'Apori pour donner de l'espoir et une voix aux enfants oubliés en construisant avec eux un monde plus juste et solidaire. Les enfants sont souvent les premiers témoins des conflits. Beaucoup ont perdu des proches, certains ont été déracinés de leur village. Dans ce contexte de fragilité, les camps de la paix organisés au mois d'août de chaque année par les animateurs Tapori, qui la plupart d'entre eux étaient des enfants. Tapori veut être plus qu'un simple camp, il veut être un moyen d'expression pour les enfants, un espace où ils retrouvent leur voix, où les rêves reprennent forme et où ils peuvent apprendre à construire un futur différent. Il s'inscrit dans une ambition claire, former une nouvelle génération d'enfants épris de paix, de justice et de solidarité. Chaque année, les camps de la paix se déroulent autour d'un thème central. Par exemple, construire la paix à partir de l'amitié et des initiatives des enfants. À travers des ateliers artistiques, des jeux, des débats et des créations collectives, dans un monde où tout semble les pousser à la division, ces enfants découvrent dès le plus jeune âge que la paix se cultive, s'apprend et se construit. Les camps proposent des ateliers où la créativité devient un chemin vers la paix. Ils ont réalisé des fresques collectives représentant l'entraide, la fraternité, la réconciliation. On met la colombe au milieu parce qu'elle unit tout le monde, même ceux qui se font la guerre. Ils ont planté des arbres de paix nommés espoir, amitié, réconciliation, ensemble avec les enfants 10 sorciers très rejetés du foyer Cabana qu'ils avaient invités. Ils ont appris que protéger la nature, c'est prendre soin de l'avenir de tous. Dans des ateliers d'écriture, les enfants ont rédigé des poèmes et des lettres adressées à des enfants d'autres pays partageant les rêves d'un monde sans guerre. Les camps de la paix est également un moment d'apprentissage pour comprendre et réaliser des objets, faire des petites installations électriques, de la couture et de la vannerie, etc. Les camps de la paix se transforment en un espace de guérison. Les enfants y retrouvent un lieu de parler, créer, rêver et comprendre qu'ils ne sont pas seuls. Chaque activité, au-delà des jeux, révèle aux enfants leurs talents et leurs pouvoir d'agir. À travers les camps de la paix, ATD Carmon porte une conviction profonde. La paix s'apprend dès l'enfance. Les animateurs ne se contentent pas d'encadrer, ils écoutent, valorisent les paroles, encouragent les initiatives en faisant attention à chaque enfant, spécialement les plus fragiles et les plus timides. ATD Carmon RDC contribue à former ces artisans de paix, capables de relever les défis de demain. Ces enfants d'aujourd'hui deviendront demain des médecins, des enseignants, des architectes, mais avant tout, ils seront d'abord des bâtisseurs d'un monde plus juste. Dans une région où la guerre a trop longtemps façonné les quotidiens, les camps de la paix montrent que la paix n'est pas un rêve inaccessible. Elle commence ici, dans les rires des enfants, dans leurs dessins colorés, dans chaque geste de solidarité. Et surtout, les familles et les quartiers eux-mêmes ressentent ce souffle nouveau. Les parents voient leurs enfants revenir avec des mots de paix. Et parfois, ce sont eux, les adultes, qui réapprennent à croire à un avenir meilleur.
Thank you so much. I think that we have representatives from his NGO here on our room. So thank you so much also for giving him the floor for speaking his voice through the project. And je suis désolée. We are reaching the final minutes of our session. But let's do this. We'll find a way to showcase the videos that you have prepared for us. Make Mothers Matter on their project. The name is, can you help me pronounce it in French?
En avant les enfants, promo jeux de basket.
Yes, it's a really nice initiative, and of course it's displayed in their social media, so we will find a way to make arrive them their video, the full video, not cutted. Also, Rebecca wanted to show us Corner of Hope, which is also a very amazing initiative in Kenya, I understood well. So that video also will arrive to you. And Laura, their video was also very broad on all the initiatives that Rotary has, peace building and conflict prevention, no? So those initiatives are really giving the faces of people on grassroots levels, and that's what we wanted to bring to you, grassroots here in our room. So a big thank you to these wonderful co-architects of peace, representing their NGOs.
And someone will join us here.
Yes, very quickly. Thank you very much. Again, very personal note on this. We started to include and to make this formal space for youth representative quite a few years ago, and it's personally very moving to see this kind of results. You might have not noticed, also you in the room, that we actually had the Director General of UNESCO, Big Boss, sitting there and listening actually to your panel, which is great. I've been very inspired also by all the other speakers. Thank you very much. We reconvene for tomorrow, 2:30 in this same room. Thanks again to the interpreters, and see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.